Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Atlas Information Live. I'm your host, Atlas Alex, and today we are going to be addressing a topic which, of course, came up last week, but we didn't nearly get into it as deeply as is necessary. It is a topic which uh, gets overlooked and dismissed and summarily swept aside and swept under the rug and rationalized and just avoided, generally avoided. It is something that people don't want to talk about, they don't want to think about, they want to pretend doesn't exist, or that it's being overblown, or that, they don't want to be negative because energy flows where attention goes, and there's all sorts of rationalizations and reasons for them to avoid one of the most, if not the most important aspect of the path of awakening and self-realization. We have to understand this. We have to truly comprehend this in a deep and meaningful way. What am I talking about? I'm talking about knowing our adversary, right? You cannot know yourself. It is impossible to know yourself, like we were talking about last week. Your mortal self, your higher self, and your cosmic self cannot be known if you are not intimately conscious and knowledgeable of your own individual shaitan, your own individual adversary. This is just an objective fact. It is as true as no one can know light without darkness. It's impossible. Light, without the contrast, you cannot know because of relativity in perception and awareness. That's why we live in a universe that's made up of duality, that's made up of the way it is. That's the nature, the whole nature of the Tao. But in terms of our own individual journey, knowing ourselves, we must know ourselves comprehensively, holistically, warts and all. And the reason I chose, it become very clear why the thumbnail for today's video, which is on screen, why the thumbnail has these two selves. And one is this organic, obviously mortal, physical, biological vessel that we, generally speaking, identify with and become attached to. This is our mortal self. And then our higher self and our cosmic self, which is within that vessel, which is within that vehicle of the mortal self. But then there's the adversary. And the adversary depicted here as this mechanical entity, a highly materialistic, mechanical, deterministic, reactive entity, which consists of countless components and parts working and conducting their machinations. And like all machines, that machine self has a purpose, one singular purpose for existing. In the same way that your hammer or your screwdriver or your printer or your automobile has a purpose, it has a function. It is the reason why it was created, designed, and engineered to fulfill that purpose. It would be the utmost in ignorance and stupidity, outright dumbass stupidity. Let's call a spade, to deny that machine, that engineered mechanical entity, which is inside of us, which is a part of who we are on this journey. This journey is not possible without the machinations of that adversary. And it would be stupid, the utmost in ignorance, to deny it, to dismiss it, to avoid it, to chalk it up, to rationalize it, to find all these reasons why it doesn't matter, or that we shouldn't pay attention to it, or we shouldn't focus on it, or we shouldn't comprehend and understand what its purpose is and how it goes about fulfilling its purpose, executing its purpose, executing its design, its functionality, and its programming. And yet, the adversary, it is the most single, misunderstood, misinterpreted, misappropriated. It's been branded and painted with all manner of symbols and allegories, and dismissed outright, and because, of course, its nature, the fundamental, essential modus operandi of that adversary, in order to fulfill its function, to fulfill its purpose, is deception. And we are going to get into all of this. We're going to take a deep dive today. And to help us do so, well, I thought he was there in the back. Wolfgang, is that you? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Let me.
Oh, okay. We don't see you. That's all. That's why I. Whoop. He disconnected. I think he might be having some technical difficulties. Anyway, I'm sure he'll be back. Yeah. Okay, Wolfgang. It's no problem. We can hear you. We just can't see you.
Okay. Let me just. I'm just going to undo this.
The other thing is, oh, okay, no, he's gone again. So, as you can see behind me, I have the image of a painting of Jesus expelling the moneylenders from the temple. And when we speak of allegories and symbolism, we can begin there, because all of us are a temple. We are the house of God, right? We are the vessel, we are the vehicle by which the Christ comes into the world. Christ comes into the world through us. At least this is our intended purpose. This is our purpose for being, so that our higher self can fulfill his purpose through us. But as a temple, if that temple is being desecrated, which is precisely what the moneylenders and the livestock traders were doing in the Temple of Jerusalem, then in order for the Christ to come into the world, one of the first necessary steps is for Christ to cleanse his temple, right? Eject those beings, those entities that are desecrating the temple and turning it into something grotesque, making the house of God into a vulgarity, a place of commerce, of business, and worse, of base idolatry and animal sacrifice. That is not the animal sacrifice that God wishes of us, that these moneylenders and livestock traders were taking advantage of. For that too is a symbol. So we have that famous scene from Holy Week of Jesus ejecting the moneylenders and the livestock traders, where they have no place in his temple, the temple that he says to the Pharisees and Sadducees, I will tear down this temple, and in 3 days I will rebuild it. I will build a new temple with a new covenant. And he does that, of course, via the resurrection. For that is when the Christ truly comes into the world. Through death, through suffering and sacrifice, psychological death, and rebirth. So all of these symbols they're all connected and they're all related to the expulsion and elimination of the mechanical, materialistic, vulgar, crude, worldly elements within us, within our temple, that are desecrating this vehicle, this which is supposed to be a purified vessel, in order that the Christ can come into the world through us, unabated, unfiltered, uninterpreted, but objectively flow freely, without any obscurations, without any impediments, and certainly without those subjective elements which taint and alter the purity and the sanctity and the resplendence of the Christ, which he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And it is only through me, through the Christ, that we come to the Father. Well, if that's the case, then what is it that stands between us and the truth, the way, and the life? Well, what is it about us that operates in deception, in diversion from the way, offering us another way, its way? But that's its way. It doesn't present it to us like that. It presents it to us as my way. And last but not least, what elements inside of us represent death? So if the Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, then the adversary is my way and my truth, which is deception, and death. Because that is what Christ conquers. That's what Jesus conquers. That's his entire life. And the passion play, the whole of the Holy Week and the crucifixion and resurrection is Jesus playing out the cosmic drama that shows us, that gives us the case study, the gold standard for this humanity on overcoming the adversary and embodying, being reborn as a living embodiment of the Christ by overcoming deception and diversion and death. All right. Well, hello, we can see you now.
Yeah, finally. I had to unplug it not once but twice to get it to go.
Yeah, StreamYard is funny that way. Sometimes it has problems detecting hardware, so you did the right thing anyway.
Yeah, eventually I'll figure it out. Not that I'm a techie, I feel my way through.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's
I think it was designed in some way for it to be that way. So, yeah, I've been listening to you, and I completely agree with everything that you're saying. The only thing is, and I think it requires a lot of attention on our part as a human being. But at the same time, there has to be some level of humility, for lack of better words, and that is whereby you might say, okay, I need a reset. I need a reset, which what I would call that, what I'm describing as the dance. The dance. Okay, so you focus and then you let go so that you can engage, a finessed focus yet once again. But to assume that you're going to maintain full focus from beginning to end, I think is kind of I think it's part of the trap that we may catch ourselves in doing less than what we're capable of, for lack of better. Other than that, I agree with everything. So I would say be careful, because we're dealing with words. We're dealing with what I call magic, and words are magic. They're spells. And so again, if it's magic, if you give too much attention and emphasis to, oh, this is magic, then all of a sudden you're under the spell by your own creation of that of the magic itself. So you have to go back and you have to say, okay, it's only magic. I created it, and I need to step back and not let it capture me, not let it run me. So it's us running ourselves through. You would call it ego, deception, and all the rest of it. The model that you used of the human being and the machine is a very good model. I agree with that. And the machine itself is a kind of construct, okay, that we created. It's part of our. It's us. So I can't say we created it, but it's part of us. And I see it more as owning it and saying, well, I created it. So the thing is not to overemphasize or blow it out of proportion to the degree that it becomes this evil, 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 dark entity, which now controls us. So that is my only point that I want to make. I mean, it's maybe a nuance, but I think I talked a lot to try to bring it out and expose it, but I see that as a really, really great danger.
well. The danger that you're describing
Yes.
is that the adversary actually takes over and appropriates the spiritual work.
Yes. Or we've allowed it to.
Okay, we've
You
allowed
know,
it to, but it actively
yes,
took it
yes.
over.
Yeah,
But
it's
we
designed.
didn't.
It's
But
designed.
wait a second. Let's be clear here. Let's be clear here. We didn't allow it to. We believe
Yes,
that we are in charge of eliminating the adversary.
right,
I am going to get rid of my ego. I am going to eliminate my ego. Or like so many people online these days, I have already eliminated my ego.
right,
When someone says that, those words, I have no ego, or I have eliminated my ego, that's when you know 1000% that they have fallen into exactly the trap that you are describing.
I 100% agree. And I would never say that.
But here's the thing. This
Yes,
is why we have to be very careful in the words that we use to describe this trap,
yeah,
because that person did not allow
yeah,
their ego to be to be in control of them. No, they've been deceived. It's self-deception.
all
They
right,
have been hoodwinked.
okay,
They
I agree.
believe that
Yeah,
they're in control,
okay,
but it's entirely their ego that is in control.
I've combined this thing of that I allow with I've allowed myself to be deceived, right? Or for lack of better, I think you said the same thing. You allowed yourself to be deceived, or you've been deceived by yourself.
You've deceived yourself.
All right, and I'm not calling it allowed, but
But you see, when you say that,
I know.
when you say that, you see, generally speaking,
Yeah,
when we use that word
yeah,
allowing, it's in a positive sense. We're allowing things to unfold, and we are allowing ourselves to, for example, to
yeah,
experience the darkness. Like when we fall into, like, say, when I fall into depression, there's sometimes all I can do is just allow myself to be depressed.
right,
Okay. But that's very different from allowing myself to be taken over by the depression.
right.
Do you see the difference?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
believing that I've overcome the depression because I've busied myself with a billion different things and I've taken my mind off the fact that I'm depressed.
yeah. So
Right?
you're also doing what I call a form of shifting by taking your mind off it, which is what I'm
That's
talking
not a
about.
good thing. That's not a good thing in this case.
It's not a good thing, but it may be a necessary thing. You know, if your depression led to suicide, that would also not be a good thing.
Right, but I mean, but that's exactly why I'm saying allowing yourself to be depressed, not fighting it, but also not indulging it.
Right.
Just being with it, sitting with it, neutral, in other words. That's allowing, is
Okay.
as a neutral thing. When you
Yeah.
say you're allowing yourself to be deceived, that means you know you are being deceived and you are permitting the deception to take place. But that is not what we're talking about when
No, and
someone is deceiving themselves.
I agree about this thing of being neutral about it. Okay. And all I'm saying is how what are all the ways of being neutral with it? And one of them might be observation, being an observation of yourself.
It must be that.
Yes, but
It's not one of the ways, it's the way.
it also may require something more, and that is a letting go of the deception itself, and risk moving to the side. Okay, so you can say observation. Well, how do you do that when you're trapped and caught in your own
Precisely.
deception?
Precisely. Which is why they're not allowing themselves to be deceived,
Right.
because they're not even in observation of the deception. They believe that they're in control.
Right.
You're not aware of the deception. If you're not aware of the deception, you cannot be allowing yourself to be deceived. Do you see what I'm saying?
One of the earlier words that I used was humility, and what you're describing is the lack of humility.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I am in control, I am enlightened, I have eliminated my ego. These are all statements from ego. These are all statements of pride.
Right. So
there's no humility there.
Anytime I hear that, and you know me, I go, okay, I go, fine. That's an oversimplification, right? There, like, and it's worse than that. I call it. It's I know, but I just go. You know, I get frustrated because all I see is I, and I go, how can you reduce it to I? Right? It's an oversimplification. It just can't be that.
You
can't be that.
You have to. I can understand why you have to resort to that kind of language, because it's not like you can say to someone, yeah, but that's not, you can't say to someone, well, that's just self-deception.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So what are you going to say? You can say, well, that's a bit of an oversimplification. You're trying to basically dance around the issue.
Dance again.
But between friends and here in this space, right, which is an space of objective discussion, here we call a spade, and those people are delusional and they're deceiving themselves, and they're entirely caught in their own trap of mystic pride. That particular flavor of pride is known as mystic pride, when the ego hijacks the whole of the spiritual enterprise itself, and people are actually awakening in and through their ego.
Right. Yes, it's true.
That's the adversary.
Okay. The only thing, it feels like how you're speaking and you're looking at those people, it's like they're down there and you're talking that, but you know, you also said they're learning through their ego, through their own deception. There's something interesting in there that makes it unjudgeable. You're not qualified to judge where
nobody's
they're
judging
at.
here, Wolfgang.
No.
Nobody's
Okay. Oh, no. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying you have to be there, because it sounds like. Doesn't mean you are. It sounds like.
It is what it. Look, I've been there myself.
Yeah.
I've been there myself. So I was in that position.
Haven't we all been in that position?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to speak for you or anybody else.
All right.
I'm going to speak for myself. That's the experience that I know, that I have for certain, that I was also in that position. So that's why I can speak decisively and knowledgeably about that and the nature of mystic pride. And I do so not out of judgment, because I do so out of the seriousness and the severity, the cleverness, the insidiousness, and the subtlety of that particular modus operandi of the adversary. Right. And I know what it's like to be in that trap and not know it, and not know that I am in that trap.
Okay, and then if you're speaking of yourself, then you're making a kind of assumption that you can speak to an experience that someone else is having, that they can relate to you. In other words, they may be having a similar experience. Similar. Clearly not exactly the same.
It's not exact, but the modus opendi at the essential level, it is the same.
I agree. Yeah.
It's like The Last Samurai, right? You can spend your entire life looking for the perfect cherry blossom. The reality is that they're all perfect.
Right.
Okay. So there's a trillion beings in the universe,
All
right
right.
now at this moment, all suffering. They're all living as a cherry blossom right now.
Right.
None of them are the same, but they're all experiencing cherry blossomness,
Yeah, I think that's a good example of what I'm trying to say.
right? So,
Yeah.
but for me to say, look, there's a cherry blossom, that's not an act of judgment. It is a objective statement of fact of saying, look, there is someone suffering in a state of cherry blossomness. Wouldn't it be
Oh,
great? Wouldn't it
okay.
be great if they could transform into an actual cherry
Okay.
and grow beyond the blossom state?
In that context, the way you've said it now isn't the same feeling that was showing up previously, and that's so it's you've given it a better context, let's put it that way, a better
Okay.
overview, and I think that's really important. Otherwise you start to be drawn into the deception of the tone of the mood, because it wasn't careful enough. And I mean how far do you want to take it, right? Like, this is my whole issue with oversimplified, right?
But you see also though, this is my issue with softening things up for delicate, sensitive people, because
Okay.
that way that
Yeah,
gives
yeah.
them an opportunity to not take it seriously.
Okay.
And
And
I
I
don't
think,
want people not to take it seriously.
okay,
Too many people
yeah.
sweep this under the rug.
Okay. So this is my dance, because I'm both. I'm both soft and severe.
Hmm.
People look at me on the surface and they say, you're too soft. I think people see me that way to some extent, right? But I'm not. If you really know me, I'm not. So
Yeah,
I
but
think
that's
I think it's this balance between the two that you have to maintain, that and not lose sight of the objective, which is what you're talking about.
but that's why I had to object to the use of the phrase "they're allowing themselves to be
Yeah,
deceived,"
yeah.
because I said no, they're being deceived.
And I think I'm a little too much that way, in the sense that I'm the guy that, working with plants and things, the connectedness of everything needs that ingredient, but that doesn't mean that it's there in order to create the mutual symbiosis, the connection, and the cooperation, the harmony. But that's one aspect. That's the one I'm dedicated to.
Okay, I want you to take a long, hard look at
Yeah, I
this
did already.
image.
I already did. Yeah.
Okay, and and understand that everything that you describe and talk about and where you are coming from,
Yeah.
you are coming from the right hand side of this photo.
Exactly.
But when I'm talking about the left hand side of this photo,
Yes.
none, nothing, zero of what you're talking about and what you feel is so important and what
Yeah.
is a part of you and your worldview and your philosophy and your spirituality applies to the left hand side of this picture,
Okay.
because a machine wants to dominate and control and determine outcomes.
Right. Yes.
So it doesn't care about softness. It doesn't care about ecosystem. It doesn't care about high or anything. The only height that it cares about is being at the top of the pyramid.
Okay. So I only have one little question. I probably not a big thing, but you've referred to nature as being mechanical. And the
Yeah.
point is, it's definitely mechanical, but it's also spiritual. It's also the right hand side of
But
this.
that's not mechanical nature. That's divine nature.
All right. All right. Okay. All right.
So
Well, good point.
there
Yeah.
is a separate, now, just like the Tao, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's the white inside the dark,
Yeah.
right? But that's still
Okay.
light
Okay.
inside
So
the dark.
so
It's not dark. It's
if I
light.
I agree 100%. It has to be that. So
when you talk
when
about high order ecosystems, right?
yes,
And you talk about self-organizing and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's higher selves
yes,
organizing
yes, yes. And you can talk about
because
chaos. You can talk about chaos theory, and I've come up with the term negative chaos and positive chaos. So one
correct,
is divine chaos, and the other is mechanical chaos,
correct,
which is entropy. Okay, no,
correct.
that's fine. The thing again that I want to just point out, maybe just point out, okay, is when we say it's mechanical nature, it's mechanical nature, like what is implied is that's all nature is. There's a kind of emphasis and implication to someone hearing that, going, well, nature's more than that, right? It's also divine nature. And then you go, yes, yes, it is.
So this is why um, in the past,
Yes,
uh, spiritual teachers and religions created a new classification, something which was separate from nature,
yes,
right? But was also not divine. And they referred to the mechanical nature that troubles us in this particular, for the sake of this particular discussion, the mechanical nature that troubles us or that we're interested in are 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 what have been called demons,
okay,
right? Devils, evil, in other words.
yes,
That way, in the past, people didn't have this problem that you're describing where, oh, you're calling all of nature evil.
right,
No. There's this whole other classification of beings called evil spirits, or or demons, or the
yeah,
devil, right? And this is what fell or in Islam, they're called nafs, and they're called jinn, and so there there was this whole other classification of metaphysical spirits which were negative, that only wanted to sow the seeds of chaos and death and destruction and control and all the rest of it, right? That we typically associate with evil or demons and so on. The problem is that nowadays, right, you can't talk like that because people just dismiss you. You're like, what are
right.
you talking about,
Yeah. Yeah, no.
right?
And I agree. And I agree there needs to be a really bigger discussion now. And I think we're at a point where a lot of what you've said earlier, we're at a point where things have gotten so ridiculous in the revealing so-called the apocalypse, that the nihilism that we find ourselves in. We need to start to rebuild within the destruction of that whole other thing falling apart. The thing that you're saying needs to be seen and understood, and it is crumbling in and caving in on itself like a house of cards. So now we need to rebuild inside of that. In other words, we need to get online with, perhaps call it the Phoenix, which also, by the way, is the path of Christ. Okay, and we need to start to carve our way through to to form, and we're informing, we're in formation, because that's ahead of us at this point. But that needs to be the direction, which is kind of like the position that I was saying before, of building something, building an ecosystem, creating the high order ecosystem instead of just basically another ecosystem. So I think it's important that we instead of focusing how bad, we need to focus on, okay, how are we going to go through and pass beyond that. Okay,
Right.
so and this is the issue of evil and demon, because how much of that is our own creation, our
Okay,
own
see, so this is again, now see again, you're you are trending towards. You know intuitively that as soon as you start talking demon and evil, like even intuitively, it's coming to you. Yeah, but how much of that is me, really? You see, it's already drifting back into what I'm getting at, which is this. We don't have to talk demons and evil. All we have to do is look at ourselves, observe ourselves, and understand that we have a mechanical, cold-hearted, self-serving, self-interested aspect to us. It's called
Okay.
our mechanical nature.
So it
And
is
and
us.
if you've seen the Terminator, if you've
Yeah.
watched the Matrix movies, this
Okay.
is it. We
Let,
have that inside of us, and
let me,
we can go from there. We can go
okay, let
from
me
there.
ask you, it is part of us, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Because
of
as long
course.
as it's part of us, we have no duality. There's no duality really.
There's absolutely duality, and we're going to get to that. But first,
Yeah, yeah.
Benjamin Raphael says, from what I'm hearing from both of you, there appears to be a distinction between the divine and the mechanical nature, perhaps reflecting the difference between what is pure and what has been adulterated, pure consciousness and the ego. In a similar sense, this distinction may be symbolized by the virtuous woman and the adulterous woman. So Benjamin is calling upon the timeless symbols of the virgin and the whore, right? The whore of Babylon, uh, uh, tr- um, um, juxtaposed against the Virgin Mary, right? The Virgin Mary, Mother of God, versus the whore of Babylon, who destroys an entire civilization,
Right.
right? So but those are the two natures of Mother Nature, because Mother Nature is feminine,
But they're
right?
also
And so Mother Nature, like you talk about divine chaos or positive chaos, negative chaos, right? Or divine chaos, negative chaos. Well, woman, the feminine, is chaos. It's just how does that what is the chaos serving? Is it serving the building of civilizations and the building of temples to glorify God? And is it serving supporting men and the creative artistic process to bring the Christ into the world? Or is it being a whore and bringing about the collapse of everything,
yeah.
right? The collapse
Yeah.
of Babylon.
Like I think, there's the salt of the earth people, and the reason I bring that up is because what you're describing isn't that black and white. It is in a sense that when you look at it, but when the salt of the earth people, you can't say they don't have that at play within them. Okay, they have it maybe not as an intense a level as you're describing, but it still exists. So there's this, now I'm in the path of Christ. Now I've fallen, I pick myself up and I get back on the path of Christ. And basically there's this kind of repetition of falling and picking yourself up all the time.
Well, we don't have to. You're absolutely right, but of course, there's an easier way from my perspective. Okay, right? This is called Aum, the analogous ultimate methodology, and what that means is this is a ladder, right? From this level to this level to this level to this level, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay,
Right.
this is a spiral pattern of Aum. There is only one way to advance on this ladder. This is Jacob's ladder. This is Jacob's ladder. And there's only one way to go up this ladder, and that is you have to go down before you can go up.
Okay.
Okay. So, in other words, this is the I've fallen and then I get up and then I suffer, but then I overcome and then I face another obstacle. I descend into hell. And this is another word for this we have, by the way, is I'm sure you've heard this before, right? It's the hero's journey.
Right.
Okay. So this is every story. This is every myth. This is every fairy tale, scripture, and everybody's life countless times over and over and over again. That the characters change, the situations change, the circumstances change, the demons change, the obstacles change, the treasure that they recover down in hell changes. But guess what? The analogous ultimate methodology of life does not change.
No, and I agree. I agree that's the overriding model. Okay. But
Correct.
what I'm saying, the individual lives, what we, you and I, and everybody experiences are you have 1, 2, 3, 4. What ends up happening is you end up getting, let's say you get past 1 and you get in 2, instead of a spiral, for it could go into a circle and repeat itself for 1,000 years.
Of course,
Okay.
that's possible.
Okay. And so it's just that you weren't ready. Something would not let you get to the next level for whatever reason.
Yeah, you
Self-imposed, you,
you
or
could
even,
you didn't let you get to the next level.
or you weren't ready. It could also be
Okay,
that.
what does that mean, Wolfgang? You weren't ready. If I'm not ready, that
Yeah.
means I am doing something or not doing something that is making me unready.
All right.
There is no
Okay.
such thing as you're not ready because the cosmos decided that you're not ready.
All
There's
right.
no such thing.
All right.
Remember, you are the cosmos. The cosmos is you. Your
But
cosmos,
yeah.
your macrocosmos is going to reflect you, the microcosmos.
Okay. But what I'm suggesting is there's no need to say that one is there's no need to put to if there's a cycle, right? If something cycles for a while, say 2 cycles, and then it moves on,
Mm-hmm.
there's no need to say, well, that's a lesser, lower aspect. Okay. In other words, some things just need to be repeated in order so that those lessons can be really, really locked in. In other words, we came here to learn a lesson, and we may want to recycle and repeat that lesson so that what we came here to learn is locked in. And that could be just a kind of that could be an insecurity that we have, which again is ego based. Okay, possibly fear, but we want to make sure. So we do another cycle, a couple more cycles.
So you know what? I let you off the hook the first
Yeah.
time you brought it up about the circles. There's no such thing as a circle.
All right.
Okay. What you observe as people repeating the same lesson over and over and over again to reinforce the lesson is every time they do that, something changes. And the thing that changes is them, they change. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
either a slight advance or a
Yeah.
slight degeneration. There
Okay.
is no repeating the same circle exactly the same way over and over again.
And
It's
yeah,
just a degree to
yeah.
which the spiral is expanding or contracting.
Okay, and I completely agree with that. That's a nuance that's important to talk
So,
about.
but why this is important is when
Yeah.
you say, well, maybe they're repeating the same lesson over and over again to really like lock it in. No, what they're doing is they're seeing the same lesson from these different perspectives, these different aspects
Yes.
related to that particular lesson. So the next time they go through it, but it's a little different this time. Like I thought I had this licked, but
Yeah.
I didn't consider this whole other thing.
So it has a kind of entrapment quality to it.
It's not entrapment. It's not entrapment. It's called oh shoot, the word's not coming to me.
Entrainment.
No. Not integer. It's like it's like when you're reading a book and it comes in chapters, right?
Right.
So it's not, you need to learn this lesson, but you can't learn it all at once. It needs to be broken up into chunks.
Well,
And you got to do it in little baby steps, in other words.
so it takes on a linear kind of format, which
It's
is
not
mine.
linear though. It's still the spiral. It's not linear. It's
No.
progressive.
But
It's
it
progressive.
is, but it's kind of rational. It's a thinking element, a thinking kind of aspect that jumps in to take over. It's an aspect from the mind that shows up.
No, it's not. It's
Okay,
not that. It's experience. It's still consciousness. It's still experiential.
all right,
I'm trying to think of. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, here's an example. Someone who's an alcoholic.
right,
Okay, and they go to AA and they do their meetings and blah, and they go through this and they get sober, right? Well, they're sober now, and now they think they can go out in the world and they're no longer an alcoholic. They're sober. But every now and then, when they're being depressed or whatever, they get this terrible urge, this desire to drink, and they think, I'm not gonna drink. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go backwards. But maybe I'll go to the cannabis store and I'll get some gummies, right? They have a little bit of THC in them or whatever, right? The active ingredient, and I'll just chew some gummies, and that'll just take the edge off, so that I won't drink.
right,
And maybe there's other little coping mechanisms that this person develops so that they don't fall off the wagon. But after a while, they might discover that they can't get through their day without their gummies,
right,
or they can't get through their day without their coping mechanisms. And if they try to stop their coping mechanism, maybe they discover that they can't.
right,
So now what have they discovered? They've discovered that their addiction was never couched in alcohol.
right,
And them overcoming their addiction to alcohol did not solve the underlying issue.
right.
Because now they've discovered that they're addicted to video games or to exercise or to sex or to gummies or to something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
But
this is not a mental intellectual exercise. This is a discovery of
okay,
oh of identifying an attachment to being an alcoholic, and no longer, and as long as I don't have alcohol, I won't be an alcoholic. That itself was its own kind of trap.
right, yes, yeah, and
And
that
even
may be
if you believe that you've overcome your alcoholism, yeah, but
right.
what about the underlying thing that
Exactly.
led to the alcoholism? Now you discover that that's still there. Now I have to go deeper,
Yeah. Okay,
right?
but this is this level of circles, right? Which is
Right.
not like and the value of that, and why maybe you've allowed yourself to stay at that level for a bit. The thing is, as you pointed out, it can very quickly go sour on itself because it has, as much as it has an the circle moving forward each time a little bit, it can also degenerate and take you back into where you started.
There's
It can bury you because the way you described it, it's still the problem, right?
Yes, but the thing about the Alm of Life is,
Yeah,
okay, I have this, I drew this 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
yeah,
If you've ever played, I mean, you probably never played role-playing games, but the reason I keep bringing them up all the time is because role-playing games were essentially designed after the hero's journey and the Alm of Life. So in role-playing games, you have levels of dungeons that you
right.
descend into. So this is -1. This is -2. This is -3, right?
Okay,
So in other words, if for the in this particular example, like Yeah, maybe for the alcoholic to get over the alcohol, he had to go into -1 level, and that put him up to -2. But now he's discovered that, oh shit, but the addictive personality,
Yeah.
or this underlying. So he says, and you're calling it as maybe he's falling deeper or he's falling backward. He's not falling backward. This is part of his progress, but he does have to go deeper into the dungeon. He has to go down to level 2
All
of
right.
the dungeon now. And he has to
Right.
face that demon in a deeper level. And he's going to have to continue doing this over and over and over in deeper and deeper and deeper levels. And forget about 4 levels, talk about 400 levels.
Okay. So let me ask you: do these gummies not help move it down through the next cycle?
Look, I just use that as an example.
No, I know, but
It can be anything.
yeah, well, whatever it is part of what drives it deeper down, right?
If he realizes
Yes,
that
yes,
he's now addicted to the that all he's done is it's a bait and switch.
exactly,
And
and
so
that,
but the point is that before he was battling, he was facing, he thought his demon was alcoholism,
right,
but that's not his demon. His
no,
demon is deeper than alcoholism.
right,
And it's only by discovering that he has an addictive personality. And if he doesn't get to the deeper underlying issue, he's going to spend the rest of his life spinning his wheels, hopping from one addiction to another.
right. And so enter into the conversation, into the scene, winning formulas, right? Because these become other next level of egoic self-deception,
Right.
where, yeah,
Because, and the thing about deception is that the most effective form of deception is like the expression, the demon never comes to us as our enemy. The adversary rarely, rarely presents itself as an adversary. It presents itself as a friend, as a
right,
comforting embrace, as a comforting balm. It's like, oh, you're having a tough time. You really want a drink? Don't worry, you don't have to take a drink. Why don't you go have these gummies instead? Why don't you smoke a joint instead? At least you won't be drinking. And it's
right,
like, isn't it great that I'm on your side? Isn't it great that I'm here for your best interests? That I'm going to keep you from falling off the wagon? That's how the adversary comes to us.
right,
And that is the cleverness, the subtlety, the insidiousness of the adversary that is so important for people to appreciate. Benjamin says, yes, the mechanical nature of humanity seems to be unfolding before us, becoming increasingly pronounced with the passage of time. If humanity has indeed descended from a golden age, then perhaps the task before us is not to invent a new path, but return to the way. And Benjamin, he continues here and he says, and Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father, the source of all goodness, truth, and beauty, except through me. I believe we are called to undertake that inner journey of becoming more Christ-like, gradually aligning our nature with the way he embodied. Well, so this expression, becoming more Christ-like, gradually aligning our nature with the way he embodied. Benjamin, I appreciate the sentiment and the intention behind those words, but I want you, because you know your Bible, I want you to meditate just for a moment on the image behind me, okay, of Christ. Is Christ aligning the moneylenders and the livestock traders with himself? What alignment do you see happening there? right? So when you say aligning our nature with the way, it's if the temple is being desecrated by the moneylenders and the livestock traders, there's no alignment. There's no way for you to align money lenders and livestock traders to the Christ such that they can carry on inside the temple. The Christ says, to hell with that and to hell with them. And he ejects them from the temple, and he does so with severity.
Yeah.
He tells them where to go, and he uses the whip of willpower to eject them from the temple of God that they are desecrating. So when we view this image, okay, these faces are opposed to one another. They are adversaries. The reason why I'm coming down hard on you, Benjamin, for that statement, aligning our nature with the way that with the Christ, is that, do you know how many countless people have rebuted me online? They say, no, 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 we have to make friends with our ego, and we have to work with our ego, and our ego is our best friend, and we can align our ego with our higher self, and then they're going to be in alignment and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God, it's like, this is the adversary speaking. This is how clever and subtle the adversary is, where he says, oh, you know what? I'm in danger of being eradicated, of being booted out of the temple. So I got an idea. What if I can get this guy to turn around so he and I are facing the same direction? Now we can be in alignment. And that's exactly what happens with mystic pride when ego starts getting in the way and starts saying, oh, and starts talking about my truth and my power. And let's manifest our desires. And so we can have abundance and money and power and success in the world. And people think that they're being spiritual. So again, this is not a knock. This is not a I'm not saying this to judge anyone. I'm not saying this to judge you. I'm just shining a light. I'm shining the light of Lucifer, the light bringer, okay? And Lucifer, who is held aloft in the hands of Lady Columbia, right? That's Our Lady Liberty. All right, that's the Statue of Liberty. She's holding aloft a torch. That's Lucifer. Our own divine mother shines the light on the adversary, which is one of the reasons why Lucifer is associated with the devil, because Lucifer sheds light on our mechanical nature. Lucifer sheds light on our demons. So that's why Lucifer and the devil get associated, because what do people throughout history, anytime somebody delivers bad news, what happens? The king, what does he do? He kills the messenger. Right? So when a messenger comes, when Lucifer comes and shines light on the demon, the king banishes Lucifer and says, "Oh, you're with the demons. Get the hell out of here." Oh, I've got let's see, the Deluxe 69. He laughs here and he says, "You clown." He says, "Atlas clown." Okay. So obviously he has a different opinion of the nature of Lucifer, but in any case, what okay, all right, very good, Deluxe. Thank you for your input. This is the reality of the adversary and how clever and insidious he is. And we cannot afford to be naive and we cannot afford to fall into the traps. And there's many, 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 many traps. Remember that one of the expressions that they use to describe the Kali Yuga or the end times is the age of confusion. And one of the ways that the adversary defeats us is through confusion, because there's so much confusion and conflicting information out there, and that there are so many different ways. Remember a couple weeks ago we had a discussion on convolution, on how convoluted things are nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
It's the adversary who does that, who creates that convolution. It's, remember, because we were talking about mechanicity, and when mechanical things just become so overcomplicated and they become impenetrable. It's like everything is so mixed up and convoluted. It's like you don't even know where to begin. And when people face something that is so complicated, they don't even know where to begin. Very often, it's just easier for them to allow themselves to just brush it aside and say, I'm not dealing with that. I don't want to deal with that.
It's interesting because like history tends to repeat itself. They say, right? And during Nietzsche's time, and it hit different parts of Europe in different ways. And they had nihilism, which is the complete destruction of everything, of all values, of all culture and everything that meant anything. So the thing about Nietzsche, as opposed to, say, the French and other English, they went more into this nihilism phase. Nietzsche went through, he wasn't a nihilist so much as he was someone who was revaluating. He revaluated. In other words, he recreated value, but in context of having passed through a revaluation. And I think the crazy, the convolution is the nihilism, but the convolution is not the revaluation. And I think what's key, what I always come from, the position I'm always coming from, is this position of revaluation. What is at the core that really means anything? And that is where the phoenix arises, in the revaluation. That is where the Superman is born, in that revaluation. So I think if you say, well, that's the Christic path, I would say, well, that's because through the revaluation, it's the only thing that makes sense. And we had to revaluate it because everything else got so encumbered and so distorted that it appears we need anarchy and we need nihilism just to destroy everything. But that's not what it's about. It's about, it includes that, but it has to be more than that.
So I wanted to take a moment. Deluxe here, what is he said? He said, there's nothing to say. I'm just an effing clown. So I wanted to share with him and all of you probably one of the most striking and frightening images of Satan, of the devil, that was ever painted. This is the adversary, right? Now, you know, this is, you take a good look at that face, right? Right? And he's holding up a coin, right? And he's got his he's wearing the royal colors. This is truly a haunting, and and he's got, there's the peacock feathers. There's a lot of symbolism. I won't go into all the details here. I mean, you can take your time. This is a relatively easy image to find online. Let me get the this is Satan by Ludwig Stasiak, if I'm pronouncing that, Stasiak. He painted it in 1900. So just a little bit over 125 years, 126 years old, this painting. But this is how the adversary appears to us, because this is how we see ourselves most of the time, right? And this is the startling, frightening truth, and what Gurdjieff called the terror of the situation, and what Nietzsche was ultimately writing about, right? About the death of God, and about, everything degenerating into mechanicity and into nihilism, is that it was the that nihilism and that secularization is precisely the task, the job of mechanical nature during the Kali Yuga, during the end times.
Right.
Because when we were having a few minutes ago, we were talking about nature and how mechanical nature needs divine nature embedded inside of it in order to flourish, especially if it wants to achieve the heights of a high order ecosystem, which is divine, which is it's expressing itself, it's expressing its highest nature, which is its divine nature. So what then if the Christ is the way, the truth, and the life? That means divine nature is where life comes from.
Yeah.
And that mechanical nature, if you remove divine nature from mechanical nature, you're left with nothing.
Well, you could be left with a residual energy that dissipates. It can only dissipate.
Okay, but it's not alive.
It can appear to be.
Not alive.
I agree. Well, it can appear in its residual presentation of itself.
Okay, but appearances are deceiving.
That's right. That's right.
That's the whole point. That's why in Hinduism they call everything Maya, illusion.
So what are demons then? How much are they that?
Well, who or what is trapped at the heart of that demon?
Okay. Yes.
This is what nobody ever asks this question.
I agree.
And yet we all know that demons, what their job is quote, to possess. Is it not?
Well, let me ask you this: Can it be like a soul that got trapped, okay, and lives in this horrid residual energy that keeps repeating itself over and over and over again?
Well, Wolfgang, let me turn the question back on you. Yeah. What else could it be?
All right, I agree. No, and I was thinking in terms of Marcus Aurelius when he says, "What you do in life rings in an eternity." So that kind of captures that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now here's the thing, though. When you say about a soul or a consciousness, a being, right, that's trapped, is enslaved inside of this quote residual energy that's constantly on repeat or whatever. This is the peculiar nature of high level demons.
Yes.
Is that, and I've described this when I talk about transhumanism, like for example, in my book, when I talk about transhumanism is the only way that AI will ever achieve so-called AGI or self-awareness. And transhumanism is, but they want to implant chips in people and connect those chips to the AI. That's what Elon Musk is doing with his company called Neuralink.
But
And by the way,
isn't that a symbiote, a kind of symbiote, or
no, 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 no. It's a cyborg.
Oh, okay.
It's not a symbiote.
All
It's a
right. Yeah,
cyborg,
yeah.
right? Now, if you had a very, very, very subtle metaphysical version of this, okay, you'd have a mechanical entity that was able to um, penetrate a being and penetrate its mind and its heart, those centers, and via manipulation of those centers and its physical body, if it had one at the time, and its energetic body, its vital body, it's able to hypnotize and mesmerize the consciousness.
Right.
And by doing so, it's able to enslave, it's able to possess that consciousness.
Right.
Now, the thing is that these entities, I don't profess to be an expert in demonology and the metaphysics and the metaphysiognomy of demons. However, we do know from mechanical nature, first of all, there's two principles: the Hermetic principle of correspondence, as above, so below. Okay, but there's also, we know from mechanical nature that larger entities are amalgamations of many, many, many smaller entities.
Right.
So you can have, there are demons, there are entities in the infernal worlds that have been growing in power for thousands of years. And
Right.
there are demons that have been growing across humanities. There have been demons that have been around for millions of years.
Right.
And so to what degree, I don't know if you remember watching Rise of Skywalker, the third sequel trilogy, where they went to the planet Exegol and they had this Emperor Palpatine was there and all the Sith were there. And Emperor Palpatine was like this at the head of these thousands upon thousands of Sith. And although the film was not, the best Star Wars movie by any stretch of the imagination, it in that moment it captured the idea that powerful demons have thousands upon thousands of lesser demons behind them.
Right.
And when you look at how certain elite behave in the world, and you look at one of the things that they covet most, it's followers, it's fans.
Right.
And you know that these are they're attention whores, because they're sucking on that energy, on that attention, and all of that fan worship, right? So these teen idols and so on, and then they want millions of followers all over the world, and that is a reflection of the way that demons function and operate, and how they gain their power, and also how they evolve.
Yeah.
We say evolve, of course they devolve, but I mean, let's not mince words here. They grow and they develop over time.
Well, it's interesting because there's an element of the superstar being drained, but at the same time that he's being drained of his energy, he's being fed like the archon of his fan base, right? So they're pulling something out of him while at the same time giving something back. It's a weird kind of relationship, not a healthy one.
Okay, so let's take an example of someone who was
It's
being
like an
manipulated.
ecosystem of its own, though, right? Yeah,
Okay, let's take an example of, let's be specific, right? Let's look at Elvis Presley.
right.
Now, Elvis was being manipulated by the Black Lodge,
Yes.
but he himself was not a demon.
Okay.
But when he died, his personality, because the personality belongs to mechanical nature,
Okay.
personality is just a bunch of tick boxes on a character sheet, right? There's nothing inherently divine about personality. It belongs to the mortal vessel. So when Elvis Presley died, his personality didn't know he was dead.
Okay.
And to this day, the ghost of Elvis Presley, the personality of Elvis Presley, haunts Graceland. Why? Because there are still, to this day, millions upon millions of Elvis Presley fans
Yeah.
who listen to his records
Yeah.
and still go to his live performances.
Yeah.
And you're going to ask me, well, how the hell do they go to these live performances? He's dead.
Right.
Yeah. But there are tens of thousands of Elvis Presley impersonators
Yeah.
all over the world who hold live concerts, and people go and they worship the image, the idol of Elvis Presley. The personality, the character of Elvis Presley is still worshipped and adored and beloved, and they go to his concerts and he's playing the same music. So the actual personality of Elvis Presley endures and is fed that energy from all of these fans and all of these Elvis Presley tribute artists. They used to call them Elvis Presley impersonators, but you know they found more sophisticated language to describe themselves. So these Elvis Presley tribute artists are actually feeding
Yeah.
through idolatry. They are feeding energy into the waking personality of Elvis Presley, who still believes that he's alive. He still believes that he's performing live in concerts all over the world, and
Who
that he
is
still has millions of adoring fans. And so he still lives at Graceland.
okay? So he, as you say, he believes. Is he the soul?
No,
All right.
I said he's the personality.
Well, the personality, is that an entity then?
The personality is a shell. It's just a metaphysical
All right.
shell.
Okay. Okay. That's fair. Like, could an entity move into that place?
No,
All right.
there's
What is
nothing, because there's nothing there for that entity.
okay? All right.
There's no soul. There's no
Oh,
consciousness.
an entity requires a soul.
Well, because the entity wants something to possess. There's nothing to possess.
Okay. So let me give you
You
my
can't possess a personality.
okay. Let me give you my ecosystem thing, because a lot of what you're talking about showed up there. So first of all, I just want to introduce it by saying one of the people that did ecosystems called them living machines, and that I can't. To me, that was not what I was doing. Of course, I have to work with the mechanical aspect, but I am trying to move within more of a mutual symbiotic high order ecosystem. So I can't say I'm building a living machine, because that would be its lowest expression, and I can't operate from that being the modus operandum or the guideline for what I want to create. So now go to the next step that I want to make about what we're talking about now. It actually gets to the place where I feel that there is a being like call it a nature spirit. I call it an entity that shows up in each one of those living ecosystems. And it has to do with all of everything that you talked about, people looking at it and going, oh, isn't it beautiful? And it's like their energy is part of creating that personality, call it. But at the same time, I feel a being, an entity enters into it, and it kind of takes on a personality. It takes on a character of its own based on that being, that entity that shows up. Now, I felt it. It's like I know it's there, but it's not clear. And I often question myself, asking, am I imagining things, right? Am I creating this? And perhaps I am. But I do feel it is, it's akin to what the you talked about earlier. It's akin to what they're doing with the human machine thing.
Transhumanism.
Transhumanism. It's akin to that, but it's not coming because the transhumanism is invasion of the machine into that being, whereas I'm saying, okay, it's my positioning is somewhat coming from the opposite position. Only I could say I could be doing the same thing. Okay.
It's not that, but it's. I'll tell you what it's not.
Right.
It's not a. It's not an outside entity that is coming to what is appearing for me
Yeah.
is that the ecosystem represents a kind of your higher order ecosystems represent a kind of microcosm for a golden age.
Okay.
Only it's not a golden age with human beings.
Right.
It's like a mini golden age for all of the creatures and all of the beings in your ecosystem.
Okay.
Okay. Now, during golden age, what happens is there's a community there, and there's
Right.
a community of elementals.
Okay.
Those are the spirits, the souls of all of the beings in your ecosystem. They all have their own monads, right? They all have their own Atman, their own divine souls, and their own consciousness at that level. Now, generally speaking, the elementals of nature are there because they're very immature. They're childlike because they're still in nature. They're innocent and they're in nature, right? They haven't yet graduated to the level of the human kingdom. So they're innocent and they're very childlike, not childish, childlike. There's a big difference.
Okay.
But nevertheless, childlike still means childlike. And that's why you observe yourself most of the time out in the world, out in nature, out there, like in the jungle or whatever, you find a lot of low order ecosystems.
Right.
It's because childlike can become childish and kind of, and children, children don't like to clean up their room. They don't like to, and if you've ever read the novel, the little novelette, not Animal Farm, the one with the boys on the island.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know which one. The King. Well, what's it called? Oh yeah, I know which one.
Oh God, I'm so bad
Lord
with
of
these
Lord
things.
of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies. Okay. So there's a perfect example of a bunch of well brought up British schoolboys yeah, thank you. Lord of the Flies, Bea Beaful helped us out. So they're boarding school boys, well, proper young British gentlemen, but young, and then they end up marooned on this island, and very very quickly they try to organize themselves, but then it degenerates into chaos, right? Into Lord of the Flies. Um, so what you experience and what we experience out there in nature is like low order ecosystems, and what all
Yeah,
the scientists and everybody see as the dog eat dog nature and survival of the fittest of right. It's really we're it's almost like it's not quite as bad as Lord of the Flies, because remember, they're still innocent.
yeah. So
Okay,
let me
but
just quick.
let me just finish this thought though.
Yeah.
I just want to finish this thought because I want to get to your ecosystems and what sets them apart and
Right.
why it feels like there's an entity there.
Okay.
A high order ecosystem, just like in a golden age,
Right.
someone in that community rises above and takes the mantle and says, okay, I'm going to lead you guys. And that is enough to inspire all of the other elementals to then themselves pursue and raise this higher, to achieve this higher level, because somewhere along the line some member, and remember, it could
What
be that
about
that individual is being inspired by you, Wolfgang
what
the
about
gardener.
what about if I'm that individual and there is a coming together? In other words, what I am doing is I am enhancing the mutual symbiosis, which is that natural interaction with those childlike beings, and I'm enhancing their cooperation and communication among themselves, which then lifts it creates a harmonization and a harmony within that space.
Yeah, but you're not doing that. Your innermost being is doing that.
Yes, yes, yes,
Your
yes,
higher self
yes, yes.
is
Not
doing
me,
that.
not me, of course.
But you and your higher self can't be there at all of those ecosystems all the time, can you?
No, but once they create a level, they tend to cooperate with each other to maintain that. And I do, when I go to do my maintenance, I can clearly feel like an exorcism taking out the childlike crazy stuff that they're doing, and then putting in the energy of that Christic high order energy. And what's a funny thing happened, it exhausts me, it takes everything out of me, while a few minutes later I'm rewarded. Like something happens, and I get it all back again.
I don't I
Not more.
don't I don't take anything away from any of that.
All right.
I'm just suggesting that your higher self, in the process of working with you to set up these ecosystems and inspire them to a higher level of being,
Yeah.
your higher self, either through some kind of an elective process or some other kind of selection process that we're not aware of, a being or a there's always someone in that ecosystem that
Well,
that I'm
usually.
saying that there is that creates, that is this focal point, like the conductor of an
Okay,
orchestra.
wait. I'm not denying that. I'm saying I have done that, and I stopped doing that. I stopped conferring that to one element. I have. I've stopped doing it. and I find I can create much more powerful ecosystems by not deferring it to one element. So it'll be a community of elements rather
Sure.
than one element. Okay.
Okay.
So
But
so right away, the difference is it right away organizes itself as a whole to be more cooperative, more mutually symbiotic, because it's not reliant on one individual anymore. That individual is replaced by the cooperation, the mutual symbiosis, the high order ecosystem itself, and it gets there more quickly that way. Now, how resilient is it? Well, if it's dependent on one individual, if that individual was to die, that would mean that the ecosystem was dependent or reliant on that individual in order to do what it does. And so that is a
and
problem. That is a problem.
an individual, not one individual. An individual. It's like it's just like in a kingdom. When the king dies, somebody replaces him.
I've stopped seeing. I don't see one individual as being the king
Okay,
of my ecosystem.
I know you have a problem with this, but
Yes,
remember, I prefaced all of this by saying it's a microcosm for the golden age. There is no golden age where there is no leader, where there is no whether it's a living embodiment. Like during the golden age, the so-called kings, if you want to call them that, they're Christified masters, right? So there is no golden age without that, because you cannot, because as you can see, like, look at the world we have. The leaders that we have now are not Christified masters. That's why everything's going to hell, because we don't elevate masters into positions of authority anymore.
well,
We elevate tyrants into positions of authority, which is why you have a problem with an individual being a focal point or being a center. It's the same thing like a cell in the body has to have a nucleus.
that individual talking about is Christ. I don't need a leader. I have Christ.
But Christ is inside of you. Christ is everywhere.
Yeah,
but Christ inside of you and everywhere. Like, Jesus wouldn't have come to the world and wouldn't have come to do what he did if Christ didn't need to individualize in an individual.
That's right. In each,
it's not enough to say that, because you're talking about the whole reason why we're having this discussion is because you told me that you sensed an entity, a being shows up in your ecosystem,
which is the Christic force to a large extent. It's an embodiment of that.
Okay, but the Christic force must have a vessel, a vehicle in which through it can express. And so there must be at least one monad that embodies and expresses that Christic element more than any other in that ecosystem.
Okay, so an ecosystem has a monad. I called it an entity, but it's a monad, really.
You do not have the power to create monads.
No, I know.
Right? And then what you're saying then is an ecosystem is a living being, so that if your ecosystem dies, what happens to that living being? What happens to that monad?
Well, the monad doesn't die, does it?
No, but what happens to it?
I don't know.
Right? And how does a monad, you see, look, your ecosystems can do great miracles, but your ecosystem cannot break the laws of karma and the laws of evolution and the laws of the alm of life.
Yeah.
Right? No, that's not true. You can't create demons. Beaful. You can't create demons. You can only create something that a demon possesses. You can, and if you can only create a demon out of yourself. Wolfgang is not creating a demon in his ecosystem. So, but see, this is the problem, right? Because if you were actually creating a monad, right, out of your ecosystem, that then it very well could be possessed by a demon.
Yeah. No, no, no.
You-
And I agree with what you're
a
saying.
monad has to evolve through the mineral, plant, animal, and finally human kingdom. Your ecosystems have minerals, have plants, and have animals, and have water, and
Yeah.
you are the human element
Okay.
along with the other humans
So
who
the
are
basic,
part of that. But all of them have their own monads.
yes, but there,
You can't a monad. You can't create a monad that is an amalgamation of other monads. That's not how that works. But an individual in that community can be selected from among the monads that best embodies the mutual harmony and symbiosis of that community, and becomes like a beacon or just an overseer
yeah.
who just takes on that role. It's like
So,
the community
so that
choosing a mayor.
that kind of makes sense in, like, I heard about brain cells, right? And the Eastern philosophy always said that, and even science says that Eastern says one thing, but it says that brain cells don't reproduce themselves. And so the Eastern philosophy said that, whoa, well, that's not a problem, because the what happens is that other cells from the body, any other cells from the body, can be taken and turned into brain cells. That's what the Eastern philosophy says. Now they're discovering that to be true. Okay, because they're saying, well, you may have no, but you can stimulate the creation of new brain cells. The only way to do it, though, is to take other cells and convert them, just like a queen bee gets royal jelly, and then an
Yeah,
ordinary bee is turned into a queen bee through the royal
right,
jelly. So the
right,
body is able to do that as well.
right.
So
I'm
that
I'm describing something very similar, but on a metaphysical level, not a physical
no, no, no.
level.
That's why I gave this example. I'm saying it exists in reality as a model.
Sure. Yeah.
Yet it's not the normal model, because you have to take other cells that are liver cells and turn them into a brain cell.
Well, look, but even in Western medicine, they have stem cells, right?
Yes.
And basically what can happen is an epigenetic change. What happens is the Eastern philosophy is skipping a step. Any
Right.
cell through epigenetics can return to its stem cell state, and
Okay.
from that stem cell position, it can become any cell, including a brain cell.
Yes.
That's the step, right? That's it. You don't take a liver cell. A liver cell doesn't become a brain cell. A liver cell becomes a stem cell, which then can become a brain cell,
Okay.
right? And really, what I'm describing is the entity that you feel is that community, that collective. But the reason why it feels like an entity, it's because that collective has chosen a representative or a leader, someone who embodies the essence and the purity of that high order ecosystem that you intended for it. And just like a community choosing um, the best and brightest amongst themselves to represent them as their mayor, right?
What about
It's not
what
that
about
the mayor is special.
what
It's just
about
that the mayor represents that community. That's all.
what about organisms like Vangelis, where you had two separate organisms through mutual symbiosis become one organism? One organism. Okay, so that is a process where they, uh, they're absorbed, like they're so much in agreement, so much in alignment,
Yeah.
that they become one. Okay, it didn't require a leader. There wasn't a leader. One wasn't a leader over the other. It became
Sure,
one
sure, sure they
organism.
are. Sure they are. Why?
Pardon?
Why do you think? Why do you think otherwise?
Well, which one was the leader? The Vangelis.
Does it matter?
Um, I don't see the necessity for the leader. Quite honestly, I really don't.
Well, look. In a marriage, right? In a marriage, sometimes the man leads, sometimes the woman leads. But you have to have a leader.
You don't have to. You
Yes,
can.
you do.
Can operate that way.
Yes, you do. No, you can't, because then it'll split apart. You must have an agreement where if we're going this way, we go this way. If we're going that way, we go that way. But the agreement must be there that if the right hand leads, the left hand follows. If the left hand leads, the right hand follows. You cannot exist in a kind of quasi pseudo Marxist idea that the left hand and the right hand do whatever the hell they want, because guess what? That splits that organism into in two.
Yeah, but it's still agreement, right? It's still agreement.
But
That's
then it's no longer an organism. It's been split into two. It's no longer the mutual harmony and symbiosis, that perfect symbiosis that you were describing, where the two meld into one.
well, they both
Look, you have a lot of problems. You always want to resist this idea that you are led, believe it or not, by your higher self. And your higher self is led, whether you want to believe this or not, by the Christ.
right.
There's a hierarchy in the supernal worlds, and it is a hierarchy. It's not a tyranny, but it is a hierarchy. There are hierarchies in nature, as above, so below. And this is how everything is ordered and structured in reality in the universe, because everything flows from the great oneness, from the great all, which is the ultimate head of all of the different multiple levels of hierarchies. So to deny this as a built-in feature of reality is something that is problematic, because even the demons have their hierarchies.
Now that you talk about it, I really don't think I deny it so much as I use it to get to the next level. And ultimately, where is my ultimate level that I choose to be led by, which is the true higher self. So I need to break all those other leaders. I need to transcend them. I need to not give them power in order to raise myself to the next level.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. That is how the adversary thinks. That's how a demon thinks about hierarchy and power. I have to, in order for me to get to the next level, I have to disempower all the hierarchies beneath me in order to get to the next level. In other words, I have to undo other people's power. I have to take their power or disempower them in order so that I can get to the next level of power. That is the opposite of how divine hierarchies work. Divine hierarchies work by empowering lower levels. That's how you gain a higher level, through suffering and sacrifice, by serving lower levels, by making them and helping them get to the higher level. That's how we get to a higher level.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So
I agree.
I'm just saying it's just it's appropriate, and it's serendipitous that this is about the adversary today, because this is a very important thing. But I want to get to some comments here. Bea, I'm just going to call you Bea or Beaful, okay? I don't. It's too much otherwise. Beaful says, but can your negative thoughts? And she asked earlier about, can you create demons? But can your negative thoughts create demons? And they're trying to keep up. he goes, how can we find our monad? I'm going to have to rewatch this. Okay, I popped in late. Okay, so we're going to just focus on this for a moment. Your negative thoughts don't create demons. We have to understand what a demon is. A negative thought is a product or is an effect of a demon. It's a demon that creates a negative thought and implants that thought in our mind. And we think that it's our thought. It's not our thought. It's the thought of an ego, of a demon that's implanted that thought. Now, by indulging that thought, by giving it energy and by giving it our consciousness, we are feeding the demon that gave us that thought. In other words, the demon was fishing for consciousness and energy. And any good fisherman knows that you have to put a worm on or you have to have a lure. You have to have something shiny and flashy that's gonna hook you the fish. So the thought is what is dangled in our mind, and it's like, oh wow, that's this or that or the other thing. And one way or another, that thought felt good, or it looked good, or it seemed right at the time, or in other words, that thought was made to be very attractive to us, or it felt good because you're talking specifically here about negative thoughts. So let's say you were looking at your ex-boyfriend or your ex-girlfriend or whatever, and that's stupid, this and that and the other thing, or your boss or Donald Trump or whoever it is, right? And you have this negative thought towards them, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good to run down that asshole or whatever, and so that is the carrot, right? That's the apple, the temptation that the demon lures us in with, and then we give it our energy and our attention to that thought. And then the more of ourselves we invest in that negative thought, the more we are feeding the demon that gave us that thought. So our negativity and our negative thoughts can grow demons, can make them stronger, can embolden them, and then it becomes a downward spiral, right? On the Alm of Life, that spiral path works in different directions and on different levels of reality. So, and we've all experienced the downward spiral, and where but really we draw it like this. We say, the downward spiral, but it's still a spiral that's going like this. It's just like, so the Alm of Life works for evolution, but it also works for devolution.
You're not showing the drawing. Pattern.
Sorry?
You're not showing the drawing that you're...
Oh, geez, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Oh, yeah, that's... because I got to actually look at what I'm drawing, and I'm not paying attention to the live stream. Yeah, and Beaful says yes. She goes, yes, I've seen your videos on the spiral. Okay, all right. So, so this is the question was like, that about us creating demons. Now, how we create demons is if we become a demon, or a demon who already is possessing us in some capacity, or one of our defects and vices becomes so powerful and so overbearing that it starts leading us all the time, and we become a slave to this particular demon. Then eventually that demon will take us over.
Can that be an identity and identification with a demon?
It is possible, because there are people who identify with and become attached to an entity inside of them, and then they willingly give themselves, or they believe that they are led to believe that entity is who they truly are. And
Right.
that demon is actually, whether that demon is pretending to be their higher self, or that demon is openly demonic, but this person has become enamored and brainwashed and mesmerized and indoctrinated into Luciferianism, right? Satan worship, that they might be convinced that they want to be a demon,
Right.
right? Because there are people in this world who believe that, who worship Satan,
Well,
and they want to be, right?
a lot of the Indian cultures, right, like native Indians, they work with entities, with the spirit world entities, and many times demons, many times. So they have a whole host of demons at their so-called disposal, and they have a relationship with them. Those are the
Um,
shaman type bruises, the guys that are doing spells and things.
well, okay, we can't we don't want to conflate the elementals of the fourth dimension with
Okay,
demons,
all right,
okay? Because shamans and shamanism, as I understand it, and I specifically want to address the the uh, um, the native Indians, or the Aboriginal, the First Nations people, and so on, is that they were more attuned to the elemental spirits of nature. So the animal spirits and the nature spirits, well, those are four-dimensional entities. Those are the elementals of nature. Were they, like all of us,
yeah,
susceptible to being duped
yeah,
by demons?
yeah,
Yes, absolutely. But
yeah,
I do not think it is fair
right.
to take a brush and
No, okay.
paint the Aboriginal peoples as working with demons. That's going too far.
Well, one thing that, talking about the Bible again, King Solomon was said to have had hundreds of demons that he was in charge of, and that was what made him such a great king. Which is a weird concept. I heard this. I read
I
this.
don't know where you got that from. I
Okay.
don't I
Okay.
don't I don't know where that comes from. That sounds to me comes from people who are promoting, and that sounds like propaganda, like Black Lodge propaganda.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because there is
Now,
the dark side of the what is it called, the Talmud or whatever.
um, just to say, Bayful just said, just wanted to put this up before we forget. Thank you, Atlas, for a good explanation. You're welcome. That's why I'm here, and hopefully that's why you're here. Bayful says the Black Lodge. He probably wants to know what that is. The Black Lodge is a term that we use to. It's a blanket term. They are the adversary to the White Lodge. So they are like Satan and the legion of demons, or all of mechanical nature. In other words, they are the antithesis of divine nature. We call them the Black Lodge because above we call it the Great White Brotherhood, or the White Lodge. Oh, here Benjamin's chiming in on your Solomon thing. He says there is a book called The Lesser Key of Solomon, which says that he has control over several demons through seals. Okay.
Right. Right. Okay.
Um,
That's
and Bea says, "Oh, I know this. I know. This is Leia. I'm just using my other account on here. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, Leia. Okay. No, fair enough. Um, no, okay. Coming back to this control over demons. Now, Benjamin, are those demons or daemons? Because a lot of people get those two things confused. Daimon is Daimon. And I think a lot of people, when they read esoteric stuff, they get confused. But this could also be a symbol or an allegory for demons that are inside of him that he has, quote, control over, in the same way that
Black magicians, or what I call bruisers.
No, not black magicians.
Okay.
No. In the same way that I'm no longer controlled by fear, right? I'm not my demon no longer has control over me, right? I'm said to have control over now. He's locked under a seal, but
Okay.
he's still inside of me. I haven't exorcised him,
Right.
but I'm in control of him.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to unleash him, I could.
Yeah.
But this is a mystery that's not talked about much. This is something that's not talked about much, but that symbol of Jesus riding the donkey into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, the donkey represents his lower self, his mechanical self, his demons. But that donkey is under his control. And Benjamin says, I'm not sure. He says, but it may have been daemons or jinns. So this is where I'm saying, where it comes to like the shamans and the elementals, it could be jinn.
Right.
Those are fourth dimensional entities. So it's always tenuous when we read the Bible and we say, oh, he had these demons or those demons or whatever. It's like a lot depends on the translations. But Benjamin also says the Lesser Key of Solomon, specifically the Ars Goetia section, asserts that King Solomon successfully evoked, bound, and commanded 72 powerful demons. According to the text, Solomon used a magic ring given to him by God to confine these spirits in a bronze vessel. Aha. Okay. He then forced the demons to pledge allegiance, do his bidding, and help him build the first temple in Jerusalem. Okay. All right. That it's a symbol. It's symbolic of alchemy. Because what is bronze? Bronze is the alchemical union of copper and tin. Copper is feminine, tin is masculine. And to create a bronze vessel, that is the grail, the holy grail. That is it's the union of masculine and feminine, but it's a vessel, which means it doesn't spill. And then 72 Kabbalistically, 7 plus 2 is 9. That's the ninth sphere. That's Yesod. That is the sexual force and the divine mother. It's Yesod on the tree of life, the ninth sephira. And alchemy is the process of transmuting demons, what Jung would call the integration of the shadow. So you are gaining control over those demons, and by transmuting lead into gold, the lead of the ego into the gold of the human soul, that is the temple of Jerusalem, is the monad. That is what is created from the bodies of the demons that you transmute. And the magic ring given to him by God, that ring is not only the ring of samsara and the wheel of becoming, the bhava chakra, but that ring, that circular motion, that's infinity, but it's also the covenant between God and man. It is the marriage between Solomon, who, by the way, Solomon means solar man, right? Not lunar man. It's not Lunaman. It's Solomon. And so these are all symbolic of sexual alchemy and white tantra. And so all of the consciousness of all of these demons are what Solomon uses to create the bronze vessel, and that it's with that consciousness, all of the powers, in other words, all of the powers and abilities that these 72 powerful demons had are now used for Solomon's. They are bound to Solomon because they are now within his bronze vessel, his alchemical vessel, and they are what build the temple, the temple in Jerusalem, which is the same temple that Jesus is chasing the moneylenders out of. Right? It's all connected. Benjamin Raphael says, I have a feeling that this is symbolic too. He says, referring to sex magic, especially that Solomon is known to have many wives, including royalties. So it's not that it's just the way that it's written. It's allegorical, so that you say when you gain control over your demons and you use sexual alchemy, you can get the power of those demons to build your temple. That's really that's white tantra. That's sexual alchemy. It's just yeah, that's what that represents. And there's too many coincidences in that passage, like the 72 demons, right? 7 + 2 is 9. There's too many coincidences in there for it to be a literal passage. So much of the Bible is Kabbalistic, and it's written in code. Basically, it's written in allegory and symbols. So, like for my part, I'm still waiting for my partner to show up, right? So that we can get to work in the 9th sphere and use sexual alchemy to dissolve, and so that I can do the same work of Solomon, right? But that's work that needs to be done in the 9th sphere. So, but that's the nature of the adversary, right? Like I in the description for today's live stream, I stated that the only way to the higher self is by facing and through the machinations of our adversary. The adversary, the mechanical self, our demons, our defects and vices, our egos, whatever you want to call them, however you want to visualize them or imagine them, as long as you recognize this orientation, right? That machine operates on two resources, two human resources. That machine functions on your human resources, consciousness and sexual energy. And that machine, what constitutes its makeup, its metaphysical makeup, we call it lead, alchemically, because of lead is poison, right? Lead is poisonous. It's toxic. It's detrimental to us. But the substance trapped in that lead and the resources being drained by that machine, if we can transmute that machine, not get it to cooperate with us, not align it with us or any of that nonsense, but to alchemically transmute the lead in that machine into the gold of the human soul, the golden chariot of the gods, of the Hindu gods, right? Krishna, who rides around in his golden chariot. right? That's the golden bodies. Those are the solar bodies from which Solomon gets his name. Solomon, solar man.
So if you transmute, in a sense, you're changing it from being so much of a machine. It's no longer just the reduced terminology machine. It becomes something, begins to become and show as something,
Okay.
something more.
Remember, it's a symbol. It's an allegory.
All right.
It's not a materialist scientific
Right. Right.
explanation.
Okay.
The materialists, the metaphysical explanation is that the machine
Yeah.
has um a binary mechanical matrix
Right.
that has captured your
Unlock.
consciousness,
Okay.
and by breaking down that matrix, by dissolving the mechanical binary
Right.
matrix of that particular ego, that consciousness that was giving it life, right? That's where I brought up the transhumanism part before. Your
Right.
ego, each and every ego that we have, and every demon that exists, is essentially a cyborg.
Right.
It's a cybernetic organism, but because it's metaphysical, not physical,
Yeah.
that's a terrible analogy, because you can't think of, well, what is it? What it
No.
really is, it's a metaphysical parasite.
No. I know. I understand what you're saying, and I agree because I've had a vision, or call it a dream, whereby what I see is I see that all of technology that we create in the sense of creating an obstacle that we then create in order to overcome. Okay, so in other words, if the thing that we created, like AI or whatever it does, we have within our being the capacity to achieve the same outcome beyond those binary mechanical means. So, in other words, the AI is has all this information that it has available within a very limited scope. Within our DNA, within our being, we can access infinitely greater information and knowledge. Okay, it's within us to do so, but we use the machine and we build it so we can say, okay, now I see how I can access the true element. So we have to transcend, we have to move beyond the creation, our creation. We have to, but we use it in order to then see things that allow us to then move beyond the obstacle that we created. So I think that's very much in line with what you're saying, only I've seen all of this.
Um, this is one of the reasons why I've used so much technological analogies and allegories in many of my videos and in my book as explanations, because for example, Leah was asking here, how can we find our monad? um, and I use the example of video games, right, to illustrate that how you find your monad is the same way that if you were trapped in a video game, what the person you would be looking for is the player of the video game, right? And so that's like what you just said, Wolfgang. We create these technologies. Not many people lose themselves in video games,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but they do that in order, like I did that, in order to realize one day, oh shit, if I can lose myself in a video game, then I could be lost in reality.
Yeah.
That this reality can be a video game that I'm lost in. That means that if I'm the player, if I am the player who can lose himself in a game, that means I have a player, or I am a player who has just lost himself in this video game that we call 3D reality.
Right.
And so this is I'm just trying to give you my own personal experience of a concrete case study of what you just described, Wolfgang,
Yeah.
about us creating technologies that temporarily screw us up in order to show us what's actually happening and how to actually escape. Like, that's why the whole Matrix movies exist,
Right.
is to teach us that same lesson, is that, well, you know, if you can lose yourself in this thing called the Matrix, how do we know that we're not lost in the Matrix right now?
Yeah.
That
Well,
was
it's
the whole point of that movie.
because a lot of that is in the mind, in thought, in you know, except for those people that are inventing those technologies and creating those
Yeah,
things.
I mean,
So what I want to say is my work, I would call it where the rubber meets the road, right? Like if you're working in your garden and you're going through the same process. In my example, I still need to use a pump, a mechanical pump, to run my ecosystems, right? And I'm constantly struggling with that and in the struggle with that, I see more and more ways to move, maybe not yet ready to replace a pump, but other things show up that help me move beyond and into a higher expression of where we need to get to.
I'm just going to share this very quickly. This is from Supin Kashper. He says, "Hi, Atlas. Happy to see you. Was not able to watch you for 2 years, but I'm tuned back in now. Glad to see you all. Well, I'm glad to have you back. I hope you had you probably have lots to share about your 2 years hiatus, but I hope everything is well with you. But I'm certainly, we're certainly happy to have you back. No, on that point, this is where the conversation takes a um, a turn where we always have to take it when we're talking about the adversary. And like what you were just describing, anything and everything that we do, quote, out there, and anything that we deal with in terms of an obstacle that we have to overcome, a goal that we're trying to achieve, or some project that is within us that we know that we have to complete, or an act of service or sacrifice, even if that act of service is being in service to your garden. That garden is not that garden is alive. Those are living beings that you are servicing, that you are serving, and you're
Right.
serving them. That's what you're doing by gardening. That's what a gardener is. You are tending to the needs of your garden. So no matter, so there is only one, how do I put this? If the absolute abstract essence and spirit of selflessness, right? What the Buddhists call nothing, no thing, no self. If the ultimate absolute abstract essence and spirit of selflessness is the true nature of what we call God, selflessness is to serve, is to sacrifice, is for the sake of an other. That's the only reason why, because this is a very, very, very important thing to grasp, because everybody loves to say that we are all connected and we are all God and we are all connected and all blah, blah. And you know what I say? Nonsense. That is such a highfalutin, nihilistic, spiritual, mystical pride evasion of the facts that refuses to allow people to accept the reality of why the universe exists in the first place, and it denies the
Yeah.
Christ. It
Well,
denies the Christ and the absolute abstract essence and spirit of selflessness from knowing its nature. If you say that we're all connected,
yeah.
guess what? Then the whole universe has no reason to exist,
Well, not
because
only that.
selflessness can only be known if you give
Yeah.
of yourself to an other.
And I agree with that. So the thing is, when you talk about it like everything is connected, what you're talking about is something out there. It has nothing to do with what's in here. It's out there. You're talking about it out there. Okay. So what I want to say to strengthen your position is the only way is to actually go in the garden and not just touch the plant. That helps, but to actually lose yourself and start, you just find yourself doing things. Clip this, clean that, and you're not even conscious. You're in a trance. You're just giving yourself to doing, to interacting, and not just touching. Oh, touch the tree. That's still a little bit out there somewhere. Although you can make a connection with the tree, which is better than not, but it's not the same as just being in this trance-like mode of service, as you say, and you're just all day, you're just doing all this stuff, pulling up this weed, doing this, doing that. You don't even remember what you did. All you know is, wow, that felt good. That really felt incredible. And you're not thinking, I did this, I did. Sometimes you have to remind yourself, I got a lot done. But while you were doing it, you weren't thinking so much what you were doing. You were just doing, you're just making yourself available to it, giving
Now,
yourself.
now there is, even though we have to accept there's a self and an other, because you have to that's masculine and feminine, the masculine giving force and the feminine receptive force, and the union of those two forces, when the receptive force accepts what the expressive force gives it,
Yes.
that's where that feeling, that euphoric feeling of connection and
Yeah.
love comes up, because the plant was willingly recipient of what you were doing for it. But more importantly, you were a willing recipient of the knowledge of what you needed to do. You
Yeah.
allowed yourself, you surrendered yourself to what the plant needed. And that's why it feels like the plant was telling you what it needed
Yes.
and you were just obliging it.
But there's also an exchange that's happening, right? And the
Sure.
exchange is between your masculine and your feminine aspect
Yeah,
dancing in the exchange with the plant doing the same thing.
absolutely. But but that third force
Yeah.
of the union, that's where the duality, it doesn't dissolve, but it evolves
Yeah.
into the triunity, the Trinity,
Yes.
right? Because a new thing is born, and the new thing that is born is Christic. It
Yes.
is the union, it is the reconciliation of masculine and feminine,
Yes.
of positive and negative.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
now, with that in mind, Supin Kasper has another comment really quick. He says, lived on an island without good internet. But yeah, really long story. Love what you both just said about the garden and gardening. Okay, well, let's take it to the next level, because we're talking about the adversary today, and we're getting close to the 3 hour mark. So let us look again at this image, okay, and comprehend that everything in the universe and everything that you and I are in microcosm, you and I, in as above, so below, We are the universe in microcosm. That means we have this true self and this false self, this mechanical self and this divine self, and they are opposed to each other, but they both emerged from the absolute. And the absolute is the absolute essence and spirit of selflessness, which means service to others is the fundamental nature of everything in the universe, including both halves of this image.
Yeah. Yeah.
The mechanical self, the adversary, is in service of our divine self. This false self, mechanical machine self, that is opposing our true self, is serving our true self by opposing our true self.
Well, you know what's interesting when it says love thyself? That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Right? Because service is the foundation, prerequisite for mutual symbiosis. Mutual symbiosis is the basis of love, and love is basically what you've talked about without saying it. So if you want to love yourself, you can't love ego. You can't love yourself that way. You love it by being totally of service. That is where love then blossoms. It's like that triunity thing that you talk. Love shows up in that space. Now you are loving yourself. It shows up. It isn't something you do to yourself. I don't.
Now,
is that what do you think?
Let's get a little deeper into the weeds on this, because there's a danger. There's always a danger. There's always a trap, right? Okay. There's a trap in because when you start saying loving yourself and loving your ego and loving the adversary, most of us have been programmed, and we have these ideas and these sentimental notions about what love is.
Right.
And so people say, "Oh, well, I'm going to love my ego, and guess what that is? Too much self-love is called pride."
Yeah.
That's the adversary winning.
And there's something showing up these days with, they're calling it now, the terminology is suicidal empath.
Suicidal empathy, yes.
Empathy, right.
Yeah.
Right, because that's the real, that nails it. The most extreme expression of what you're talking about, and it's showing up.
And it's showing up because as above, so below, as within, so without.
Yeah.
So how we must be precise. We can't. Like you. This is why Wolfgang's comment about oversimplification is so important, because if I say that the machine self is in service of the higher self,
right,
that's a gross oversimplification.
Definitely.
How? What is the nature of that service? And of course, the nature of that service is perfectly embodied and expressed in the most perfect expression of the game of life that anybody has ever created. And that is the game of chess. Because when you play chess, your opponent is your adversary. And your adversary is there to defeat you on the board. On the board, your opponent's pieces are ruthless, heartless. Your opponent's queen is Divine Mother Kali herself. Your opponent's queen will run ruckshot over all of your pieces, take all of your pieces and checkmate your king, and have zero empathy whatsoever. The
Right.
pieces on the board move mechanically. The pieces on the board of your opponent, your adversary in chess, are ruthless. They're subtle. They're scheming. They will do anything they can, any tactic, any strategy, anything and everything within the laws of the Tao, which are the checkerboard, the white and black of the checkerboard of the Tao. That's what determines, right, the binary duality of the game world. But ultimately, you, the player of the game, you are not enemies with your opponent.
Right. Well, can I
And,
get,
and, and your opponent is serving you, the player,
right?
by playing the way he does, ruthlessly.
Can I give one additional aspect to this? When I am dealing with plants, people have watched and they said, "Oh my God, you're ruthless." You know, you cut this, cut this, cut this. But when you're in that space of service, you do it lovingly. You don't say, "I'm sorry" every time you cut it. That's implied in your connection. So when they say, the Japanese say, "I'm sorry" every time they cut a flower, it's over ritualized. That should be already present. Okay, and when that is already present in your action, you are doing the chess game the way you describe it. It's ruthless, but it's completely heartfelt. It's completely in harmony with what is needed. And when you stand back, you go, "Oh my God, did I do that?" Well, you didn't do it.
Well, but what you're describing is where we get the idiom, the expression, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Exactly.
Why, for generations and generations and generations, parents were not afraid to discipline their children, right? Or the children, they had to be at times very severe with
Right.
their children, but it was always done in love and
Yeah.
with love. Nowadays, we have generations that are completely listless, right? And they have no direction, and they feel unloved,
Or
the
they
younger
scream.
generations,
They
because their
scream.
parents were too afraid to
Yeah.
be severe.
Or
They only got, they only got, helicopter parented or whatever,
yeah.
but they never got any severity. And love is severity and mercy. You have to have both black and white squares on the chessboard.
Right.
And the white pieces have to move on black squares. There's no such thing as white pieces only moving on white squares. You try to play chess like that, you're going to get slaughtered.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it teaches you that ice cold, the opposite of this suicidal empathy.
Correct.
Right?
It's
It
not.
really gets you
That's
to look.
right.
When you're doing this, this is what you do.
That's right.
It's like if you're going to go to war, and and you're in that really incredible, insane situation. If you got a gun and there's a guy, you better shoot him, or else
You
you're
have to
dead.
do what you look.
Yeah.
It's called tough love.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
called tough love.
Sure.
Benjamin says, I love playing chess, and I found that facing the relentless precision of a computer opponent requires strategic thinking, learning to recognize its patterns, anticipate its moves, and adapt accordingly. And guess what? That's exactly what happens when you're in life, when you're facing NPCs, mechanical people, people who are driven by mechanical and materialist desires. And it's like those individuals very quickly, you pick up on those patterns, and
Right.
I'm not saying they're easy to quote manipulate, but they're very quickly, we can learn to navigate those waters,
Yeah.
because just
Yeah.
like sharks are like,
And
they're very, very mechanical in that
I want
sense.
to
So
say,
you can avoid them because you know what they want.
And not only that, in the so-called quickening that we talk about, this happens exponentially faster. So that's an interesting. Why is it happening now exponentially faster? Right?
Well, you know
Something's
what?
about to take place.
Look, Wolfgang sent me a link asking if technology was evil.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into the article now, but I mean, listen, there's another. It's another reason why today's topic was the adversary, and why I
Yeah.
wanted to focus on the mechanicity of it all. And then when you talk about the quickening and everything going exponentially, you know that now, I there's a video that I could share, but it's like 18 minutes. So, um, when you look at the top 6 IT companies in the world, Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, SpaceX, and Anthropic, and then there's Palantir. Oh, and NVIDIA. Sorry, um, they are in this complex, complicated, incestuous relationship where they're all investing in each other and then marking that investments as revenue and then using that revenue to project and borrow money and do these IPOs, and they are creating these data centers, and they're now evaluating themselves in the multiple trillions of dollars. I mean, like dozens of trillions of dollars. And it's 6 companies, and AI has yet to produce any profit at all whatsoever. It is not a viable business model, and yet hundreds upon hundreds of trillions of dollars are now pouring into it. And all of this has happened in the last, what, 3 years, 4 years since this AI shit started taking off. And so it's now gone exponential. And it's not just in terms of speed and time, but now the money associated with it is growing exponentially, which is it's just blowing up this bubble. It's just expanding this bubble that's going to burst.
Yeah.
And again, very early on in today's live stream, Wolfgang said something about, well, we all have both mechanical and divine nature inside of us. And I said, yeah, but there is they are not in balance all the time. There is a time when, for example, when we're born and when we're very young, our divine nature is more pronounced. And the way, the truth, and the life is like look at babies. They glow, they're radiant, they're innocent, they're beautiful. I mean, they're just glowing, these innocent little beings. Yeah, they're not very intellectual or anything, but that doesn't matter. But they're just full of love and life, and this epitome of life, and all of that divine energy is what fuels their rapid growth. You think about babies, and then how fast they grow. And I don't know if you remember this, Wolfgang. When you were a kid, did your mom ever put a ruler against the wall and then mark
Oh
the
yeah.
pencil marks on the wall as you were growing, like year after year? And then we hit puberty, and then we really take off, and we become adults in a few short years. And then in our adult lives, it kind of levels out and things kind of balance out. And so, it's, in other words, there's this unequal balance of mechanical and divine in our lives and different times in our life, not least because we're going through the alm of life, and sometimes we're in hell and sometimes we're in heaven, and we're doing that dance and all that kind of stuff. But, and here's the big but. At the end of our lives, the adversary has a role to play, because it has a job in the same way that it was serving divine nature when we were babies, it was stepping back and submitting itself to the way, the truth, and the life. Because mechanical nature was giving itself to our divine nature and growing this body and giving us that beautiful childhood and everything else. And it was sort of stepping back, and it was doing its part in serving divine nature in that way, and then throughout our lives to one degree or another. But when we start growing old, one of the jobs that mechanical nature has, of course, is it has to recycle. It has to break down. It has to obey the law of entropy. And whether it's a plant, an animal, a human being, eventually that mechanical nature starts to impose its will and starts to dominate our life, and the divine nature inside of us has to shift its priorities to its metaphysical health, its metaphysical well-being, i.e. psychological and spiritual well-being. The divine nature starts looking more towards the heavens again, because it knows mechanical nature is looking to dismantle and take back all of the physicality that was loaned to us, and that mechanical nature had built in service of our divine nature. But now we're at the end of our life. Mechanical nature is going to take that back. That's the way it is. That's the way this dance works, is that sooner or later the dance comes to an end and the partners, they go their separate ways.
So let me ask about the monk, the spiritual leader. When he dies, he dies not perhaps even with a smile on his face. He just peacefully leaves. Okay, because he's come and he's done what he spiritually needed to do, perhaps. And so there doesn't have to be this last moment, I have to work this out because it's not done yet. So I'm wondering if people that go through a lot of pain and suffering before they finally let go, before they finally go, if this isn't the higher self sort of wanting still to get something unfinished, so it works with the mechanical self to somehow to bring about the pain and suffering that maybe was omitted or overlooked or not dealt with.
So
as a last resort for the higher self.
So let me answer that by sharing with you an expression that it's not exclusive to Gnosis, but to Gnostics, but we say, die before you die, so that when you die, you don't have to die.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's why we talk about psychological death.
But that's
why
the words are an oversimplification, but I understand what comes with it. Because as soon as you say it, something else comes with it.
Okay, so in other words, psychological death means cleaning out your temple, right? Ejecting all the money lenders and livestock traders well in advance.
Yes.
And why would you do that? So that then you can do the greater work of crucifixion and resurrection, right? It's a psychological death and rebirth. And you bring the Christ into the world. So that monk who is perfectly at peace, right, before he dies, it's because he's done all this work on his ego, on his egos. There's very little mechanicity in his metaphysical, in his psychology. So the only thing that mechanical nature has to do is to take back his body. It doesn't have anything else to do because it doesn't have any agents operating in his psychology anymore.
Right.
And if you have no mechanical algorithms in your mental body or in your emotional body, well, then you're not going to feel fear. You're not going to panic. You're not
Yeah.
going to feel regret. You're not going to feel any negative emotions. You're going to be like exactly as you said. I came here. I did what I came here to do. I had a good life. I'm at peace. I'm comfortable, and now I'm going back home.
Yeah. Well,
You know, and it's not so. Now, to your other point, we have to like we can see, we can understand. Remember, we can understand the phenomena in contrast to one another. So
right.
you were asking, well, okay, but what about the people who do panic and do have like, crazy whatever in the face of death? That's because all of that is acting up in a last ditch effort
Exactly.
to give the consciousness the ability, to give the individual, the human soul, the opportunity to become aware and conscious and face that fear that they never faced during their life when they were healthy.
Yeah. What?
And
What?
that's why so many, like, and remember, you had an experience like this with your mother when she was on her deathbed. I had an experience like this with my mother when my mother was on her deathbed. When my mother at last faced her fear, I helped her do that. I was there for her to help her face that fear. And the last thing she said to me was, or one of the last things she said to me, it's not the last thing she said to me. One of the last things that she said to me was, son, I'm not afraid anymore.
Yeah. With my father, I couldn't get that, and I know what it was. My father's whole life, he was more or less the man, and he wanted to be in control. And I would say my mother had him wrapped around her finger, but he could never admit that. So he wouldn't let her drive. She didn't have a driver's license, and she was really quite dependent on him. At least he thought. So when he died, he like I was with him just moments before he died, and the fear I felt from through him was incredible. The fear, and I mean, I just said to him. I remember saying, "It's okay. Everything's going to be fine, and you can go now, and everything is fine." Then I can't say the fear went away. But all I know is there must have something happened where he found it, because a few minutes later is when he passed away. He died while I was there. I wasn't sitting there. I kind of went out of the room, and then a minute later he passed away.
So
So
this is
yeah,
this
that
is
was different.
yeah, I know. I mean, I didn't have that. I wasn't able to do that for my dad either. I mean, like European men are, especially from that generation, they're a different breed. But the cliche thing about people's life flashing before their eyes
Yeah,
on their deathbed, that's also related to that. The
yeah,
opportunity to take stock of all you accomplished and all you faced and all that you overcame and anything that you have yet to overcome, giving you that opportunity in those final moments to face those elements of your adversary that you
yeah,
didn't face, and you are now running out of time. You're out of time now. So your adversary, it was like, for most people, it's those things that they just imagine that your adversary wanted to play chess with you all your life.
right.
but it's like there were certain players, certain people, certain entities or elements inside your psychology that really wanted to play chess with you, but you either didn't want to play with them or you constantly were just letting them win.
Right. Okay.
And so it's like before you shuffle off this mortal coil, they come out and they set up the board and they put down a chess clock.
Yeah.
And then it's like whether you like it or not, we're playing speed chess.
Yeah.
Now you got to play speed chess. Now the whole game is going to be over in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me add one more real, maybe a twist. The poem by Wordsworth, Rage, Rage Against the Dying of the Light. And that has many weird interpretations, right? Because I think it's an interesting twist at this point. What exactly does it mean? In one way, yes, play that chess game because you have to. That last
Okay.
final one, that crazy one, that your last moment that
Well,
you've been given to see.
but rage against the dying of the light is remember that it is possible to lose this game.
Right.
And
Okay.
by losing that game, what we mean is it is possible to become completely identified and attached to your ego,
Right.
which is your machine self, your mechanical self. This, to put that in simple terms, it is possible to go through life and to be at the end of your life where when you look in the mirror, you might see the face on the right, but what you're thinking and what you're doing 70-80% of the time is being dictated by the mechanical entity on the left.
Right.
And guess what? At death, the light is these two halves separate.
Right.
The light leaves the machine. And when the light leaves the machine dies.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's remember that fear is the primal survival instinct and survival of the individual. That fear is what gets triggered by the prospect of death. So rage against the dying of the light is an ego angry and freaking out because it's facing its own death. It's facing its own destruction.
Right.
Well, ego, it doesn't like that because machines don't like that.
But
Machine,
a lot of people look to Wordsworth and those words, and they want to remember that in their, to fight cancer or to do whatever it is that they do. And I
yes.
agree. I agree with what you're pointing out right now. It bothered me, that whole saying. So here's one other possibility. When you say rage against the dying of the light, I'm seeing, like I say, I see energy. So a person who's like really still trapped in that mechanical, instead of seeing the light in the face, I see the shadow. I see a gray face. Okay. So rage against the dying of the light is a last ditch attempt to break the light out at that moment, to hold on and keep the light, not to give the light to the darkness, because that you can't do anyways. So there may be another side to this, which is much deeper than immediately is implied by the words.
Yeah, the thing is this whole the problem with the word rage
Yes, yes,
and
yes,
the fact that it's repeated twice
yes, yes.
is that
I know. I agree.
that's not how we do things with the higher self, right?
It's
Like
blocking and defending
it's
something.
it's
Yeah, it's not an opening of the heart. It's a shielding of sorts.
But
Pushing.
listen. Everybody is free to interpret Wordsworth however they want, and maybe Wordsworth had something else in mind, as you said. Maybe it is something positive, and maybe it is something life affirming, and don't give in to death, and don't give in to suicide. Like, keep going. You know what I mean? Like, rage against. Like, if the light, if you feel the light is dying inside of you, well, you got to rage against whatever is the darkness that's causing that light to die. I mean, there's many. Remember that um, words are, of course, they have power and they have meaning, but they also often in poetry are just expressing emotion and
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah,
And so when you have someone, for example, like a crusader, right, who is crusading for Christ and for the church, and he's going to go into battle and he's going to be a berserker and he's going to rage in the name of Christ.
that's right.
You're looking at this the strange juxtaposition, but in the moment, he's going to feel that primal savage rage, but he's going to be channeling his devotion
Yeah,
and his faith and his spirituality through that rage. So it's
bizarre. It's
lots of
bizarre.
experiences that people can have, and they don't necessarily mean it in a bad way.
Right,
It's just
but it's also a time and culture thing, right? Like if that
yes,
was 100 years ago, well, that may have been, for example, the Old Testament is about an angry God, a punishing God, and
yeah,
a jealous
a
God.
vengeful God, yeah, a
And
vengeful God, yeah,
like that's not that doesn't work anymore. And at that time, perhaps in the depths of the Kali Yuga, so to speak, those were guidelines to keep the wild animals in check a little bit, for what lack of better. It was a form, it was a structure to sort of stop people from being total animals. I don't, but in any case, it's not really, it doesn't work anymore today. That kind of a god.
um well, it it's not. The thing is that those who wrote the Bible and those who translated it
Yes,
interpreted events through a very humanistic, egoic perspective, and they
yes,
did a lot of projection. There's no
yes,
such thing as a vengeful God. It's just that vengeance just happens to be the word that they chose to describe karma,
right, okay,
right? They just called it retribution,
right,
right? Because they didn't have another way to describe. How are you going to how do you describe a God who follows the law of cause and effect? What? God doesn't follow laws. God writes the laws. God is the law. You know what I mean?
right,
So now if you're going to have to try to explain cause and effect to someone, it's like, well, you got to be careful what you do because you have to pay for your mistakes. It's called, because God will, the retribution, the law of retribution. God will smite you. You know what I mean? Like this is where this kind of language comes from.
well, it's
It's like
also
the whole notion that they call it God the Father. And
right,
remember, back in that time, in those times, corporal punishment was much, much, much bigger a thing than it is today.
right,
So when a father smacked his son because his son, whatever, or beat his children, you know what I mean? What was that? Was a vengeful father, right? Like, and so there was a lot of projection going on.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But remember, I mean, again, that's why the allegories and the symbols can never be read literally or
no,
just literally. They have to be comprehended in a more uh, like
and
holistic way.
yeah. Well, Kingdom of Heaven, remember when he says you're a knight and then he smacks him? and he's got that, whoa, shit.
Yeah. And that's so that that's right. It's like, that is your oath. And he smacks him across the face and he says, and that's so you remember it.
That's right. That was how they remembered, right?
But
And
see, that's like, I love that because
yeah,
that's so much better than the old, like just they would just, put the sword on your shoulder and,
yeah,
cross it 3 times. But that's, I love that from Kingdom of Heaven. It's like, it made it so much more. It's like, this was a serious thing.
yeah. But
It's not just some empty ritual.
it slides over to the Buddhist thing when the guy has the whip and he cracks it on his back, and whoa, shit, now I see the light. Like, because obviously the main Buddha, the monk could see, oh, this guy's brains all over the place, and he cracks him on his back, and all that nonsense goes out of his head, right?
Let's
And
get to this. Let's get to this question. Benjamin says, he asks, I have a question about the importance of being remembered after death. In the movie Coco, when a person dies, they enter the afterlife. When their continued existence seems closely tied to how well they are remembered by the living. The more people remember them, the stronger their presence remains. When no one remembers them, they eventually fade away. It makes me wonder, is being remembered really that important? No, it's the exact opposite.
yeah, I agree. You
You need to
actually
let
don't want to be
people
remembered.
need to let you go.
That's right. Yeah, that's
People
all
need to let you
selfish.
go. Ancestor worship
Yeah,
is stupidity and ignorance is what it is. And this whole notion of like creating shrines to our loved ones who have passed on and going and leaving flowers and constantly going and like talking to them as if they're still alive. If they have not, you can actually trap their souls in limbo that way.
I agree. Yeah,
And you can understand this by there's a course on glorian.org. There's a course on death, and there's also in that course they go through the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Let me just find it for you. Okay, here. Let me throw this over here, and I'm just going to hide this. Okay, so this is the course, and the link, I've put the link in the chat, and there it is on screen. Okay. There are other courses on death, of course, and there's books on death. But here's the lectures: Introduction to Death, Who Dies, 6 Stages. What happens is, if you study the Book of the Dead, and you can, again, this is too big a topic to get into right now, but the Book of the Dead, both Egyptian and Tibetan, are designed to be read to the person who has died by his loved ones or by his community, to help guide them through the process of the afterlife, to help them get into heaven. That's what a Book of the Dead is for. That some cultures have made the Day of the Dead this, remembering the dead and honoring the dead and doing all this stuff and creating little shrines for them and everything else. We have to understand that this is a consciousness.
right.
It is trying to transition from one life
Yeah,
into another life, or from this reality to the supernal worlds. But if there's a lot of attachment and there's a lot of identification that personality and that consciousness has, the more you shower them
Yeah.
with, and with this and that, like even this notion that at a funeral, remember people used to read eulogies at a funeral, but now they replace those with, they've stopped calling them funerals and they've started calling them celebrations of life, and they want to turn it into a happy, positive thing and celebrate what this wonderful person was and all this kind of stuff and everything else. By taking away the solemnity of the occasion
Yeah.
and making it a celebration, it's all kinds of positive energy, but you're directing all of that positive energy towards someone who's trying to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How would you, Wolfgang, if someone was throwing you a birthday party, how likely would you be to leave your own birthday party?
No, no, you're absolutely right. Like I tend to see energy, so I see gray. I've gone to these funerals and they've always had this cloud, this gray cloud hanging over. Whether it was in celebration, didn't matter. It was the same gray cloud. And so the only thing is to diminish the cloud, the grayness of it. And the best way is, as you say, a solemn goodbye. Like my father, before he died, he asked me, okay, so what did I do wrong? And I said, nothing. Like, look at me. How could you have done anything wrong? And then he said, I lit up a cigarette again, and I thought about my old friend who died in the war. And I said, that's okay. And I shook his hand and I said, have a nice trip, right? And he understood. It's just have a nice journey, right? Like if you're at a funeral, that is the intention. That is, you want to stand there, be solemn, and say, "Have a nice journey, good luck, have a nice trip," right?
This is exactly that. Your words and your actions there are completely in alignment with the guidance and the energy and the intention that you find in the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead. You
Don't they say
want to
journey well? As one of their sayings.
you are seeing off this person and you want to wish them well on their journey, and you
Yeah,
want them to remember to remember that I pray that your heart is going to be lighter than a feather.
yeah,
And all of that, I pray that Saint Peter is going to welcome you with open arms. This is how, by the way, when my mom was on her deathbed and she was afraid of dying, I said to her, Mom, already the choirs of heaven already warming up. They're already warming up their voices and practicing and they're rolling out the red carpet and they're preparing the largest gate, because the word in heaven is that a giant among women will soon be amongst us, and we must welcome her with all of the fanfare and the glory and that she's deserving of. And as I shared all of that with her, it just melted her fear away.
right.
I just connected with her, that part of her that says, you know what, you're right, it is time for me to go home, and they are waiting for me, and they are going to be waiting for me and going to welcome me. And I told her, I said, they're going to be singing the Ode to Joy from Beethoven, and there's going to be a 10,000 angels singing the choir from the Ode to Joy. And it's just like, and she could hear it, she could see it, and it just, and all of her fear just evaporated. And it's this type of preparation and sharing with the deceased or the soon to be departed. It's like, you we are letting you go. Where you're going, we are not qualified. We can't follow, and we're not qualified to have any sorts of attachments to you anymore.
Yeah,
and it's like you said, Wolfgang, it's like you're wishing them well. You're it's like bon voyage.
Yeah, and depending on the individual, they are there more energized in a more energized form, or they're there in a very loose energized form. So if they're loose, it's easy to do that. I had one experience where her name was Jill Christie, and she had a car accident where she was decapitated. We were at the funeral,
Oh,
right? And we were at the funeral. The casket was at the front. I think it was an open no, I don't know if it was open or not. Like
not if she was decapitated. It wasn't.
yeah. So the casket was at the, and we were sitting. I was sitting in the middle. There was another woman called Mary. Mary was her name. I forget her last name. But we both saw the same thing. What I saw, I swear, I saw the energy. Jill went like from the back of the church up through the aisle, like just right, like at about, I would say about 12 feet off the ground, just went up to it and just freaked. And it was so powerful and so strong. So obviously, this whole event, this whole ritual brought this entity, whatever it was, residual entity, to be there. And the terror, the horror that I felt from that was unbelievable. And this girl Mary said, "Did you feel that?" And yes, absolutely. Holy crap, was that ever incredibly powerful? So yeah, like this whole funeral, and she goes decapitated. Everybody's thinking about the funeral. This only enhances that whole being to sort of perhaps get trapped into the horror of what it was. And there needed to be a letting go of that, just not even being there, not even looking. I had the feeling she's looking at her own body in the casket as she passed by, right? Like it really was really, really horrible, really horrible.
Benjamin says, "Thank you for that answer. Then the cultures that practice this is doing more harm than good." Look, the worst is the wailing and the like. Certain cultures, Hungarians do this too. They're like, yeah, yeah, the women crying and wailing and all this kind of stuff. And this is why, you'll always see, or you'll often see in movies and stuff from like medieval and historical movies, where these stoic men, where when a knight falls, or like William Wallace or any of these guys, and then these women are wailing, and it's like these stoic men will always say, shut up, woman. The last thing that he hears should not be the cries of a wailing woman. I like that scene from Braveheart. Like this is the last thing that he needs to hear, that a soul needs to hear, is
Right.
people crying and wailing and, oh, we're gonna miss you, and I can't live without you, and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
Who needs to hear poor me, poor me, poor me? Because
exactly. All these, it's like, hey, I just got my heart pierced, by a claymore, and you guys are worried about what these, about.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's again, but the adversary, right? The adversary. This is like coming back to this. Before we leave, because we're past the 3-hour mark here. The adversary, okay? Yes, it serves us. It serves, but how? It serves selflessness and our innermost intimate Christ, our innermost essence of selflessness, by being its foil, its antithesis, its opponent, its obstacle, its adversary, mechanical selfishness, self-obsessed, self-absorbed, self-interested, self-righteous, self-love, too much self-love, okay? But self, me, myself, and I.
Right.
Me, I. It's all about me, right? There is no better way. You cannot devise a better way. Not I, not you, Wolfgang, not anyone. No one can devise a better way for the spirit of selflessness to know its nature than to be confronted by, to face day in and day out an adversary whose nature is mechanical, heartless selfishness. And this is the fundamental, essential foundation of all of spirituality, and the reason why reality itself exists on all levels of manifestation. It is the reason why there is a reality outside of the absolute nothingness, the absolute no self, because selflessness cannot know its nature, cannot experience what it is. If it has no self to give of, and if there is no other to give to, if it has no self to sacrifice and no other to sacrifice for. But in light of that, in lieu of that, it also needs its opposite in order to understand and fully comprehend, and also to challenge and to cultivate its selflessness by constantly being tempted by this mechanical, automatic, reactive, deterministic, cold-hearted, selfless, clever, intellectual, binary, materialistic, mechanical self that is constantly trying to tempt it and bait it to indulge in selfishness.
Okay, one last point I want to make, and that is, in so many ways, everything out there is mechanical in that regard. Is it, or is it not?
To one degree or another, yes.
Okay, so what's interesting about that is when we reach out to communicate or to talk to another person, or even working in an ecosystem, we're kind of taking that mechanicalness, and we're like a more benign aspect of it perhaps, but it's still mechanical nonetheless, and we're attempting to create something with it, to make something new by not just saying, oh, it's out there and it's mechanical and I don't want to have anything to do with it, right?
Okay, but let us not forget.
Yeah, I know.
Let us not forget that everything out there is
Yeah.
mechanical, but inside of that mechanicity, mechanical, whatever it is a seed, is a
Right.
spark
Okay.
of the infinite, eternal, absolute essence of selflessness.
Yeah.
And what we are doing,
All
what
right.
you are doing with your ecosystems and your gardens, and
Okay.
what we are doing by suffering and sacrifice and giving to others, we
Yeah.
are speaking directly to that seed that is
Okay.
planted in that mechanical nature, and we are watering that seed, we are giving that seed sunlight, and we are giving it warmth, and we are nurturing it. The mechanical entity that seed is planted in, it might react in a negative way. It might flail its arms and it might not want to cooperate, but we are focused on raising it up and helping it to experience the joy and the bliss and the wonder and the love of that selflessness. We want to show, we want to be an example, and we want to point the way to the ultimately the only source of satisfaction and joy and genuine happiness, which is we all know these idioms. It's better to give than to receive, right?
Yeah.
Because there is no future in selfishness. That's an
Right.
illusion, right? That's Maya. That leads into hell. That leads it because selfishness is the downward spiral of it's never enough. Any pleasure that you get is transient and temporary, and it's pleasurable for a while, but then it vanishes, and then you need to go and do it again. But now you need to do it more intensely because of the downward spiral.
Right.
So, in other words, we are. This is where this notion of we are all connected comes in. We are serving the player, right? We are a player and we are serving the player. We are not treating our player as an enemy. We're right. We're not the character that they are playing, whether it's an animal, a rock, a plant, a person. That's only a character that they're playing. We
Yeah.
want to speak to their being. We want to speak to their essence, their monad.
Right.
And that is where our concern lies.
Okay.
Because characters come and go.
And there's another element to that, which is like it's like a samurai sword, sharp, and it's like this thing of shifting where on the other side you have the chess game and that totally heartless ability to act with just next to that same thing, like they're almost like part of the same mechanism.
It's like it's like, you know how when you really fall in love with someone,
Yeah.
you're not in love with their personality, you're not in love with the way they look, but yeah, that all comes into it and that's all aligned and that's all wonderful. But when you really, really have a connection with someone, it's a soul connection.
Right.
It's a connection between your higher self and their higher self. And hey, you know what? How well your character and your body meshes with theirs, well,
Yeah.
your results may vary. But when you know you have a heart and soul connection with someone and they know it, it's
And
like
that's why,
that's the magic. That's where the magic happens.
and
That's what's real. That's what's real. That's the way, the truth, and the life.
that's true white tantra, because
That's
in that
correct.
the other part will show up. The rest of it will show up inside.
Because
Yeah.
mechanical nature ultimately serves divine nature, and so long as we are like so ultimately then the body and everything else will, like you said, it's will fall into place because that it's in service of that higher, because again we're talking about hierarchies.
So if my efforts, whatever my efforts have been, not so much that's wrong, they're more in alignment with what you just said now. That is my where I want to focus on and bring attention to that, right? And I'm suggesting that yes, all that mechanical, evil, dark element definitely exists, but I'm going to be working over here. Not that I'm not completely, that's part of all of this, right? But it's like that chess game and that mutual symbiosis. They're really part of the same operation, only my attention is a little more on that side.
No, for sure. But the only reason why I mention this is because it's, you can say my attention is over here and everything else. Just don't create blind spots for yourself. Because
Absolutely.
a moment ago you mentioned white tantra. I said that's the real white tantra, and I said, well, mechanical nature serves higher nature. Yeah, but
Yeah.
remember, the adversary is there to challenge us. So if you have a partner and you're trying to do white tantra, I have done this and I have spoken to many people who have practiced white tantra. Don't think for a second that trying to practice white tantra, even with your soulmate, even with your twin soul, don't think for a second that your lust and your desire for orgasm and your desire for all of the sexual fetishes you had when you were a teenager, don't think for a second walk quietly off into the night. They are constantly trying to get you to fall.
Right.
By that I mean orgasm in a big way, which is why so many tantric schools around the world degenerate within months. They degenerate into black magic, and they become sex cults and all sorts of um uh just sexual degeneration. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just go on to any streaming platform, go on to Netflix, go on to Prime Video, and just do a search for tantra sex scandal, and you will find documentaries by mainstream secular documentary filmmakers and people coming out saying, I joined this yoga school and they're gonna show me how to do spiritual sexuality. Next thing you know, I'm in this degenerated sex cult.
Okay.
Because this is why I wanted to make it absolutely crystal clear that the adversary serves us by twisting, tempting, opposing, obstructing,
Yeah.
and trying to make us fall at every conceivable possible turn.
And in the quickening right now, everything has ramped up, but at the same
Absolutely.
time,
Absolutely.
at the same time, we're finding incredible levels of discernment showing up. Not for everybody, but that also showing up.
Yeah,
Levels
but
that are beyond my wildest imagination. Things that I thought I'd never be able to discern.
but you know why? That's why everything is going exponential, like you described, and everything is going batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Why? Because the crazier it gets out there, the more insane everything gets out there, the more and more people are going to stop and say, this can't be real.
Yeah.
This can't be happening. I don't believe this anymore.
But
I can't buy that. I'm not buying into this narrative anymore. This is, and so the more, like, that's the first step. A consciousness questioning its reality is the first step for it to awaken and break out of that matrix.
So the next thing that I'm already getting a taste of, right? And I would just say I used to have the experience of information overload. Nothing is overwhelming anymore. Nothing. Okay. So it's like that overwhelming belongs to the other place.
Yeah.
Place. And this place, you may call it the fourth dimension, but nothing, everything that shows up. So what?
It's the sixth. It's the sixth.
Okay.
Wolfgang, it's the sixth. It's consciousness.
All right.
It's just you're seeing things with awakened consciousness.
Okay.
Not through the mind and not through the heart, right?
Yeah.
And not just through energy.
Maybe I'm
even
just
the energy that you experience that energy, but you're processing it with your consciousness in the sixth dimension. Even though the energy is fourth dimensional, you're processing it in the sixth. You're not processing it in the fourth.
And here's the thing. Maybe it's my age. I just don't have the energy down there to deal with that. Right?
Exactly.
Like I can't be bothered. And even if I try, it just takes everything I have. It will kill me if I try.
You know what? But that's the wisdom of age, where you've lived. Even I've lived long enough to know that A, there's nothing I can do about it, and B, it has to happen.
Yes.
So why would I try to do something about it? All I'm here to do is observe it. And hey, you know what? The people falling off the train, I'm here to grab them and help guide them over to this arc over here, right? Like, you know what I mean? That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. It's a runaway freight train. The bridge is out, right? The runaway freight train is gonna fall off the bridge into the gorge, and all we're doing is inviting people who are
Well,
jumping off the train here
you
to
know,
come here, and we've got an arc over here. That's
when
it.
you're sort of taking a break, right, and you're not actively engaged in all of this, you can just say, watch the show. Say just watch the show, right?
Well, listen,
I mean, you're watching the show.
not everybody is here to save people.
I
So
know.
some people are just here to jump off the train, and that's all they're here to do. And God bless them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for everybody else, guess what? That train is a runaway freight train, is a runaway passenger train. The bridge is out, the gorge is coming up. There's nothing we can do about it. There's no stopping it, but we shouldn't want to stop it.
No, but you see, here's the thing: all the people that are out there that continue to create this. Nothing is happening. Nothing is going on. But I don't. I can just feel right through that. I can just see right through that, and I'm going. They're shaking in their boots, but they're acting like everything is normal, and everything is nothing has changed.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why I called my book "What in Hell Is With Us," but the irony is that nobody bought it, nobody wants to read it, precisely for that reason, because nobody wants to believe that anything is going on. Yeah. But you know what? That's okay. I wrote it. I put it out there. It's out there in the world. Anybody who does need to read it, I'm sure they're going to find their way to it. And it's
bizarre. It's like the cognitive dissonance is a word that shows up, right? They just monkey don't see, monkey don't hear. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And then you've got the crazy other thing, which is the energy bursting out of the suicidal empaths, right? Like doing this crazy shit, which is so alien to the other thing that.
But remember, time reveals. Time is the great, and death is the great teacher.
Right.
And sooner or later, everyone becomes aware that oh shit, and then you will see. But those who have been doing this, like you said, monkey see, monkey know, hear, monkey know, whatever. Everybody who's been avoiding and have been saying, "Oh no, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine."
Yeah.
When it's not fine, and the train is going off the tracks and it's falling into the gorge, that is when the Bible talks about the wailing and gnashing of teeth.
Right. Yeah.
Because then there's all they can do is have that colossal freak out that we talked about earlier,
which is
in a last ditch effort for them to face what they've been avoiding for their entire lives.
Which is another aspect of this group, which is this collective kind of group thing. This I feel okay, my neighbor. They make each other kind of in this group mentality, right? Where they're trapped themselves, or they're like the sheep that hold themselves bound to that reality. They're almost trying to hold this reality in place, and the reality itself is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and they're reluctant to even see that.
All right.
Yeah.
On that cheery note, I'm gonna give one last opportunity for anyone to make a comment or ask a question. Or we've gone 3.5 hours. I think it's plenty.
Yeah.
But you see, 3.5 hours, and there's still more we could say, no doubt. But you can see now how important this topic is, right? Benjamin says, thank you once again, sirs, for sharing your insights through these discussions. I've learned a great deal from all of you, and I truly appreciate the different perspectives you've shared. Well, you're welcome, Benjamin. And to you and to everybody, I I encourage you to consider if you wish to participate in our discussion at some point in the future. Every time I post the I call it the ad, but whatever. When I post these live streams 24 hours in advance, give or take, there's always a link to the StreamYards link. And then you can, like Wolfgang, you can come on. Even if you don't want to show your face, all you need is a camera. All you need is a microphone and a headphone. And then you can, if you want to be able to ask your questions directly or participate in the discussion directly, you're more than welcome to come on. So Leah says, blessings all, as always. Thank you, Atlas. You're welcome, Leah, and it was nice to see you again. And also to Soup and Kashbur, thank you, and hope you're doing well. And perhaps you can join next time and tell us about your adventures on this island that you were on for 2 years with no internet. Okay, if there are no more comments or questions, thank you all. I want to thank Wolfgang Amelung for being with us again today, and we wish Murphy well wherever he may be. And I hope everybody has a fantastic week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. And until then, as always, inferential peace. Goodbye, everyone. Take care, Wolfgang.
Bye.
All right, take care, everyone.